Max Talent Player. Chapter 71. Hill of Blowing Wind. Sponsored content. I couldn't stop what was bound to happen. Even if it didn't happen today. It would definitely happen eventually. A players' convention would be scheduled one day, and during it, an event would certainly occur. Since that was the case, I decided it was best for me to use the knowledge I had and the factors I was capable of controlling to do my best. I'm going in. You have entered the Flashgate, Hill of Blowing Wind. The field was a large hill. I looked around, seeing a crowd of players that hadn't yet figured out what was happening. Even without knowledge of the future, if you step back a little and think, it's natural for something like this to happen. This was a place full of players in their beginning days, and most of the ones chosen in one way or another were here. With streamers and guardians alike watching, of course it would be a big event. It was the first gathering of players independent of the system. It would be fun if something happened during it, no? Like what the Giant of the Sunset did. The Giant of the Sunset made the shot table dungeon for Choi Sung-Gu. The Guardian likely had to invest a massive amount of coins to make it happen, all for his own amusement and pleasure. In other words, a Guardian's extravagance. There were many Guardians who could afford such extravagance. They can easily make one Flashgate. Actually, there was no way to check if it was a gate artificially made by a Guardian. I simply estimated that there was a high chance it was. Broken pillars. There were marble pillars broken at various heights. In the past, Jo Sung-hyun once revealed the following. There were 18 broken pillars there. As I was looking at the pillars, people discovered that Yoo-hyun had entered. Yoo-hyun had made several appearances on TV, so he was already famous. Huh? Isn't that the tutorial ender? It's so Yoo-hyun. Yoo-hyun instantly became the focus of the attention of the disoriented players who were running around in confusion. Still, it's much more disappointing than I thought. It might be the early days of playing, and only the 4th month since the cataclysm, but this was too severe. It's already been 3 minutes since they came in. They were still running pell-mell. I didn't really see any players who were trying to ascertain the terrain. Of course, the few players I nurtured were already calmly inspecting the surroundings and moving towards clearing the Flashgate, but I don't see any players with leadership. In most cases, and especially for a gate or dungeon where large numbers of players could join at the same time, it was nearly impossible to achieve a solo clear, even if you knew the strategy. I guess I can't expect too much from the early period, but still. I would have still liked to see a few people come forward and round up the players, dividing people into various roles based on each person's traits in class. There was a stark absence of a leader, aka a sovereign. That was the biggest problem these guys were facing right now. Yoo-hyun, you take the public leader role. What? Why, never did it before? Sponsored content. During the 3 months while I was in the Forest of Unknowns, Yoo-hyun must have grown in his own way. As was befitting for the tutorial ender, he must have experienced being a leader several times, too. At a time like this, his tutorial ender fame would be very compelling. That's not the case, but how could I dare to when? Basically, he was trying to say he couldn't dare take such a role when his mighty Hyeongnim was here. I'm not famous. Do you think those guys will listen to me? The look in Yoo-hyun's hesitant eyes changed a little. Like the phrase, clothes make the man. The position you found yourself in changed how you behaved. When Yoo-hyun considered commanding those people, his aura changed under the weight of the responsibility. There's something off about this wind. Huh? It's weak, but the wind has mana in it. It feels different from a natural wind. If, by any chance, the wind starts blowing hard, tell everyone to get flat onto the ground. Multiple times. You can warn them multiple times. Because the wind uphill seems off, too. This was all I could do right now. Understood, Hyeongnim. I didn't think I could save everyone here. Even if I said that, this and this is going to happen, so everyone listened to me, it'd already be a blessing if I weren't treated like a total lunatic. I can't save everyone. Someone, or some people, would definitely die. I would just do everything within my power. Monsters are appearing. A bleak wind blew in along with the notice. Many hero stories or promotional videos had been filmed based on what Jo Sung-hyun said, and I remembered them all very clearly. A weak wind began to blow. Following that, specter monsters appeared all over the place. As you know, they were neutral monsters, wraiths. A slightly somber wind. Specter monsters, wraiths. Their average level was around 20. The specter monsters floating around looked like large seagulls. Other than the fact that physical attacks had no effect on them, they weren't very strong monsters. Wraith 21 Latvian Laches. It's monsters. A few people even attempted to attack them, The attacks aren't doing anything. We can't attack them. One of the large seagull-shaped monsters went from flying slowly to opening its wings wide and wrapping a player within them. It then pecked the player's head with its beak. "A-A-A-G-H-H," screamed the player. "Does it hurt that bad?" "No, it shouldn't hurt that much. It was painful, yes, but the Wraith's attack shouldn't be that terrible. It wasn't that strong of a monster." This is pathetic. I might have messed up a bit. I had cleared the Soul Station dungeon, which was supposed to break a few times, too quickly. The players might have lost one of the ways in which they could become stronger. I heard a loud shout. Sponsored content. ORYAAA. It reminded me of a record someone had written. There was the sound of someone shouting, "Orya." It was Kim Tae-chin, who is now called the Fire Bear. He had just won an overwhelming victory in a PvP match against Jo Sung-hyun and was full of confidence. It only took him 80 seconds to destroy one of the pillars with his huge axe. There were 18 broken pillars here. Every time one of the pillars was destroyed, there would be a slight change. A notice with large arrows appeared over the entire field. I quietly prepared myself. A strong wind would soon blow over the field, so strong you could hardly stay upright. Wind began to blow. The players had a hard time staying upright. We realized then that the arrows were showing the direction of the wind. Before long, the wind picked up, starting to blow hard. I had to take care of my party members. "Everyone, get flat onto the floor." The wind was buffeting us so hard it was hard to remain standing. This isn't enough to send anyone flying. It was true that it was a very strong wind, but everyone gathered here were players. They could resist a breeze of this level. However, it was good to respond with extra care, since there was no knowing when a whirlwind would strike. Every time a pillar was broken, a strong wind with a different trajectory would blow. When some pillars are destroyed, the central pillar will appear. When Jo Sung-hyun was reminiscing about this time, he said, "When we had destroyed 7 pillars, a huge pillar appeared. Its name was the Central Pillar, and on top of it, there was a clue for the clear. In any case, we had to destroy at least 7 pillars." Thinking back on it now, I think the ideal clear method might have been to destroy just 12 or 13 pillars. The more pillars were destroyed, the stronger the wind would become, and the more ferocious the wraiths would become. New monsters would also appear, and countless people might lose their lives. Though the central pillar gets lower the more pillars are destroyed. Only 1 pillar had been destroyed so far. A strong wind was blowing, but the wraiths were still weak. And they're still neutral monsters. Kim Tae-chin shrugged, looking completely confident. Raising his voice, he shouted, "Seeing as the broken pillars are attackable, I think we need to do something about them." As if to show off his courage, he swung his axe and started hacking away at another pillar. Pillar of the ruined temple. The pillars could be attacked. After hearing that, the other players began to destroy the pillars using their own individual ways. I turned to Sung Ji-yu. "You hunt as many of the wraiths as you can with magic." "And me?" Sung Ji-yu trembled. "Ah, fuck, I'm scared of ghosts." But apparently, he must have known it wasn't the time to joke around, because after one full-body shudder, Sung Ji-yu headed towards the area where the wraiths were gathered. "Sunhwa, go support him." "Got it." Sponsored content. Sunhwa followed Sung Ji-yu. Yunseo asked, "What about me? What should I do?" "Destroy pillars along with Yoo-hyun. Don't overdo it." I gave a little more advice. "Go at it gently, while keeping an eye on your stamina. Other monsters might show up, after all. You've got the most agility, so if something unexpected happens, stick to me." "Okie dokie, gotcha." Yunseo smiled brightly. "It really is nice to play with you. It's reassuring. It kinda feels like you concretely draw out what I have to do. As expected of our boss." After giving me a big thumbs up, Yunseo used Heavenly Demonic Flying Step to move to the pillars. Here and there, pillars were being destroyed. In the meantime, the tutorial ender, so Yoo-hyun took the temporary party leader role under the recommendation of the other players. Yoo-hyun said some pretty smart stuff. "Let's not destroy all of them at once," he said to the listening crowd. "We need to see what changes occur whenever we destroy a pillar." Jo Sung-hyun, who had been silent up until now, finally came up to me and spoke. "What?" He hesitated a little. "What should I do?" That's right, I knew he would be like this. Sung-hyun couldn't be forced to do something or be pulled along at someone else's pace. You had to make him move of his own will. That was my evaluation of him, and he was acting exactly as I expected. I did have him hooked, but I couldn't be too hasty. "For now, how about you join our party? The others just now are party members who've been with me from the start." "Sounds good." Sung-hyun entered our party. You are the core key of this raid. The central pillar couldn't be cleared without Sung-hyun's ability. According to what I knew, we needed his innate ability, standstill. And if he was willing to help me, we could clear this gate a little more safely and quickly. Please hunt wraiths with Sung Ji-yu, keeping an eye on your stamina. I'd like you not to overdo it and just approach it like stretching your muscles. Take all the items that drop. For now, it was important that he learned how to cooperate with Sung Ji-yu. That would be the key to the clear. I believed that they would do well without me laying out every detail. Both of them were geniuses, and it wasn't something I could influence with my words. Can I? Once again, Sung-hyun hesitated for a long time. Can I call you Hung? His voice was trembling a little, and I couldn't figure out why he was so nervous about something like this. I almost snorted at the sight of the future typhoon acting like this. You can do so if you want. I don't think our ages are that different, anyway. Hung, please feel free to speak casually. Jo Sung-hyun was famous for not opening his heart easily to others, but apparently, the teenage Sung-hyun was still pretty amenable. It seemed like he had accepted me. If monsters other than wraiths happen to appear, bring everyone back to me. Sung Ji-yu and Sunhwa should understand if you tell them that. I understand. Sung-hyun joined up with Sung Ji-yu and Sunhwa. Alright then, guess I should go to Yoo-hyun's side, too. Just then, another pillar was broken. Yoo-hyun bellowed, halt. It was too much to expect perfect order or anything like that. Only after several others repeated the command did all the players stop moving. By future standards, it was truly nothing short of deplorable. With the arrows, began another bout of wind. The wind has definitely gotten stronger. Sponsored content. Hearing shouts of, get down, from a few quick-witted people in Yoo-hyun, the players got flat onto the ground. As they did so, the wraiths, unaffected by the wind, attacked the players. Sunhwa should be fine. Most of the aggro was being drawn by Sung Ji-yu, Sung-hyun, and Sunhwa. They were also not taking much damage from the wraiths. It was thanks to them that the players on this side could focus on destroying the pillars without paying much attention to the wraiths. The third pillar was destroyed. Yoo-hyun shouted, everyone, get flat on the ground. Most players were now used to the routine and went straight down. But a few people didn't follow his instructions. It's not that bad. It was okay even standing up. Why does he keep telling us to get down and all? It seems a little excessive to me. In terms of percentages, 90% of the players followed Yoo-hyun's instruction, and the remaining 10% didn't. For the next pillar, the fourth, the number of players who stayed standing increased a little, perhaps because they had realized that they wouldn't get hurt even if they stayed standing. See, it's fine even if you don't get down. Ah, geez, that was a waste of strength earlier. There were even people who blatantly complained. That much was enough to make Yoo-hyun feel bad, but he faithfully carried out my words to keep getting down, since the wind was getting stronger. He kept repeating the same things, saying that by getting down, we could markedly reduce the effect of the wind. Something's off about this wind. I would be grateful if you were to please listen to me. He kept saying that, but Yoo-hyun had no power, nor did he have the ability to force them. Several players refused to listen to him. Kim Taechin, who had lost the initiative due to Yoo-hyun, even overtly ridiculed him. What's got you so scared that you're trembling like a little bitch? Come now, let's just destroy all the pillars. Are you men, or are you boys? Several people agreed with him. I simply watched. I was no Superman and I had no power to forcefully command them. More than anything, I was not a saint. They were choosing to be reckless. I'd done what I could through Yoo-hyun. The fifth pillar, then the sixth, were destroyed. The number of arrows increased from 7 to 10. This time, a powerful gust blew in, almost like a tornado. It was a whirlwind. Yuwa. Someone lifted into the air, sent flying high by the wind. I squeezed my eyes shut, already aware of what would happen. The three players in the air were cut into pieces. Drip, splat, splatter. Chunks of human flesh fell to the ground, along with blood rain. If you were lifted into the air, that was what would happen to you. I felt my head becoming ice cold. Perhaps it was the effect of the calm observer's eye, bundled into my eye of perception, but I was much calmer than when the tutorial happened. From here on out, the real clearing begins. With the 3 deaths, a distortion appeared in the field. Although I knew it would happen, I was also able to feel it instinctively. And now, that monster will appear. I knew that it wasn't the time for me to be taking the position of an observer. I'm going. Right now, I absolutely had to move. Chapter 72. Hill of Blowing Wind, 2. Sponsored content. Hyukjin was the first to move. I'm going. His gaze was pointed towards Sung Ji-yu, or more precisely, a black haze to the right of Sung Ji-yu. Yunseo saw him move. Huh? The wind was abating, but it was still dangerous to move quickly. If something unexpected happens, stick to me. She remembered those words. Just moments ago, 3 players had been pulled into the air and killed. If Hyukjin is moving like that, it meant there was definitely an important reason for him to do so. I have to go, too. Matching the timing, Yunseo followed him. Using the movement skill Heavenly Demonic Flying Step. With the help of her movement skill, she quickly reached Hyukjin. Because he was moving with physical ability alone, she was faster than him. During the 3 months while Hyukjin was in the Forest of Unknowns, Yunseo had grown a lot. Her burning desire to catch up to him, no, to become stronger than him, made her strong. Hyukjin pointed at the black haze, and Yunseo understood what he meant. Okidoki, she said, using Heavenly Demonic Flying Step to rapidly move to the haze. Using the skill single hit finisher. Less than 2 seconds afterwards, Hyukjin also got within range and thrust his sword into the haze. Using the special skill Excellent Strike. Yunseo heard a notice. Devil Wraith has been killed. EXP acquired. 55 coins acquired. Sponsored content. It varied between monsters, but when killing level 30 monsters, you could get approximately 40 coins. 55 coins? She didn't even get a proper look at the monster, yet she obtained a whopping 55 coins. That was even more coins than when they killed the Great Orc Warrior. What did we just kill? Yunseo was sure of it. If she hadn't worked with Hyukjin to kill this monster just now, an incredibly dangerous creature would have emerged. Looks like they're at their weakest when they're in their haze form, Yunseo said. And our boss realized that in advance. Hyukjin nodded. Devil Wraith. With our skills at the time, we couldn't kill it. As you all know, the Devil Wraith is a monster that concealed itself on its own after killing 10 people. The Devil Wraith was the product of the Spectre monster Wraith taking actual form into a new monster. Its entire body was black, and it looked like a seagull the size of an eagle. As everyone here knows, the only way to kill it is to strike before it has completely taken form. Once it emerged, the Devil Wraith would continue to move until it killed 10 people. A monster we can't kill with our current skills. That meant 10 random people would be sacrificed. We had to kill it before it took complete form. The EXP has been reduced. I attacked it directly, abandoning the observer position. Still, I knew it was a much better choice than seeing 10 people die. The true master of the Heavenly Demonic Mountain admires the clean strike. The Lady of the Scales is surprised by your discernment. The Whispering Devil finds it regretful. The Nameless Observer continues to observe. Hyukjin directly hunted the Devil Wraith, and as such, he didn't get EXP or coins. Only Yunseo got rewards. However, Hyukjin was a little shocked. How should I interpret this? For a kill to count as him directly killing it, he had to do at least 50% of the damage to the monster. So I did over 50% of the damage? Did he get a lucky crit? Did he really deal more damage than Yunseo, even though she was sure to have used single hit finisher? It was hard for him to understand. He was forced to interpret the situation as him having done more damage than the Sword Empress whose level was higher than his. In any case, the atmosphere had turned on a dime. Sponsored content. Because of what just happened, they're finally thinking straight. 3 people died. The players seemed to have gotten a bit more serious. Most of them were focused on destroying the rest of the pillars rather than getting distracted by what was happening over here. Good, that's a bit better. There were definitely players who were interested in what was happening on this side, but for now, they appeared to be focusing on their task. Currently, there are 4 groups. The players were currently raiding this gate in 4 groups. Players who were destroying the pillars, players fighting the wraiths, and Hyukjin and Yunseo, who just killed the Devil Wraith. The last group was non-combat players who were unable to do any of those things. The 7th pillar is falling. The 7th pillar collapsed, and at the same time, a change occurred in the field. The central pillar is appearing. All of the players got a quest notice. Quest: find the offering box. The offering box is located on the top of the central pillar. The faces of the players brightened. They got a clue to the clear, the offering box, and the top of the central pillar. Kim Taechin yelled out in excitement, I was the one who found the clue. His contribution in destroying the pillars was obviously unrivaled. As he swung his massive blunt weapon, an axe with great destructive force, he looked like a warrior born to fight. The courageous Lion King is satisfied. The situation was very favorable for Taichin. Blunt weapons had a great deal of attack power, but they were slow and it was hard to land a hit. That's why they could only be used with footwork techniques or skills that increased attack speed. However, such assist skills weren't necessary against pillars that didn't move. Orya. The work on the 8th pillar began. The situation cast players of the same type as Taichin in a good light. Come on, let's do this. The players went at the pillars with greater intensity. There were a total of 18 pillars here. Since a clue appeared after destroying 7 pillars, they wanted to keep going in the same manner. Standing a little distance away from the pillars, Hyukjin spoke. His gaze pointed towards Sung Ji-yu, Sung Hyun, and Sunhwa. I'm seeing a change in the mana around the wraiths. Shit, are they gonna become even scarier? I don't know for sure, but the flow of mana surrounding the wraiths has changed. It's probably one of two things. Either the wraiths themselves will change to a different form, or different monsters will appear. Got it, I'll be mentally prepared. When the 7th pillar was broken, the central pillar appeared. We thought of that as a clue to the clear. It gave us hope. But then, we were forced to fight a terrible battle of life or death. Because the wraiths disappeared and were replaced by ghosts. Sponsored content. Wraiths were specter monsters that came in the form of seagulls. Ghosts were human-shaped monsters made of black smoke. In regards to the ghosts, Jo Sung-hyun said this. They were skilled in both close and ranged attacks and had a paralyzation ability, making them extremely tricky to face. Their appearance marked the beginning of hell. They could fire black, concentrated marbles of mana from their fingertips, and not only did this cause damage, but it also had a special, paralyzation effect, that rendered you unable to move. The wind in the latter half was so strong you couldn't endure it without getting down. The paralyzed players were unable to get down, so the paralyzation itself wasn't all that scary. What was scary was that you wouldn't be able to get down if you were affected. If you couldn't get flat on the ground, the wind would send you flying into the air, and if that happened, you would meet a gruesome end, just like the 3 players moments ago. The wind would tear you to pieces in midair. They'll start showing up here and there. Reaper scans. Translator, Lei. Proofreader, Ash. Join our Discord for updates on releases. https://dsc.gg/reapercomics. Just then, one of the players shouted, "Watch out! A monster that can paralyze has shown up. If you get hit by that, it's over for you." Hyukjin looked in the direction of the pillars. The speaker was mixed into the crowd, so he couldn't figure out who it was. However, he now knew that someone among the players had the ability to immediately determine monster abilities. It's probably Han So-min. If his guess was right, that player was Han So-min, one of the important figures of Taeguk Shield, the big guild propelled by Sungshin. So Han So-min was here, too. Doesn't look like he can see weak points yet. He was a player with the special ability to determine the traits and weak points of monsters, but it didn't look like he could see the weak points yet. Human-shaped monsters made of black smoke began to appear. They weren't affected by the wind here. Their red eyes glowed brightly. They'll attack soon. Hyukjin turned back to his teammates. You must absolutely avoid getting hit by the paralyzing poison. Everyone had to be on their guard. The ghosts extended their hands. Condensed mana, the size of marbles, would now come shooting from those fingertips. The spheres weren't all that fast. With a little determination, you could dodge them. However, you had to check the wind arrows. The trajectory of the marbles changed according to the intensity and direction of the wind. The other people aside, Hyukjin had to quickly share what he knew and had figured out to his party members first. Sponsored content. Be sure to check the intensity and direction of the wind. They'll influence the ranged attack. The wind intensity and direction changed constantly. The field's overall difficulty was quickly rising. Eye of Perception detects murderous intent. That probably means I've drawn the aggro. Eye of Perception didn't betray Hyukjin. That one. One of the ghosts was aiming at Hyukjin. It was the fastest ghost, apparently the strongest of the 6 that had appeared in various places around the field. Hyukjin focused on his senses. I can dodge. He saw it. Black, marble-sized spheres came flying towards him. They appeared to be flying in a straight line, and there were a staggering 10 of them, aiming straight at him and him alone. He checked the wind once more. He had to dodge with that direction in mind. I can't make too big of a movement. His mind honed to peak concentration. He saw nothing else in his surroundings, just him, the ghost, and those black spheres. If I make too large a movement, the others will target me. He had to avoid the ghost's attack with the smallest movement possible, the most efficient way. Observer's eye seeks the flow of nature. I can see the trajectory. The path Hyukjin drew out in his head and the trajectory, observer's eye, showed him were exactly the same. Half a step to the right. He didn't move much, just half a step. He had to show his party members. He wanted to show them with his body how they should move. The black spheres shot towards him like an arrow, as if to pierce his body. At that moment, Sunhwa flinched. Oppa, she nearly shouted. In her eyes, Hyukjin was in great danger. It looked as if he would be struck right this instant by those spheres. He only took half a step to the side, and for the slightest moment, it seemed as if time stopped. Swoosh! The ghost's attack didn't hit him, the black spheres barely whizzing past his body. The smallest movement, the greatest efficiency. The way he dodged was seen by all of his party members. They were all geniuses. Sung Ji-yu nodded, thinking, so that's how you do it. Yunseo, Yoo-hyun, Sunhwa, and Sung-hyun read Hyukjin's intent as well. He had just taught them with his body. He showed them that this is what they should do, that there was no better method than this. It was literally a living lecture. In the meantime, screams came from the area where the pillars were. I can't move. Sponsored content. Wait, stop, don't destroy the pillar. People screamed, but it was too late. The 8th pillar was destroyed. It wasn't done on purpose. It was simply terrible timing. The 4 paralyzed players blanched in horror. No. Yoo-hyun instantly tackled one of them, bringing the paralyzed man forcefully to the ground. One of them was fortunate that Yoo-hyun happened to be standing next to him. The other 3 faced the same terrible fate as the earlier players. They were lifted into the air and brutally killed. Body parts fell to the ground, a fountain of blood bursting in the air, scattered everywhere by the strong wind. The players were instantly rendered speechless. Because of a timing mistake, another 3 people died. Kim Taechan growled, which son of a bitch destroyed the pillar with that timing? It was almost as if he'd become the true leader here. He roared in rage, acting like he was the arbitrator of this place. Who the hell was it? For him, this was a good opportunity to show his strength. Using heavenly demonic flying step, Yunseo quickly swept past him. This isn't the time for it, in my opinion. Not gonna kill the ghosts? After using its ranged attack, a little of the black smoke that made up the ghost dissipated. It obviously looked weakened. Yunseo focused on the red eyes. She didn't know if the eyes were a weak point, but they looked like it. The red eyes. She decided to thrust her sword at that point. Her intuition told her that she couldn't kill it in one hit. The wind would continue to blow, and she couldn't kill the ghost with one hit. She had to whittle it down slowly. Yoo-hyun also grasped what he had to do and moved towards another ghost. Yunseo, Yoo-hyun, and Sung Ji-yu. The 3 of them started hunting the ghosts, and other players began to hunt the ghosts around them as well. If they didn't kill the ghosts, they would be the ones to die. Most of the players saw this. Ghost LVL? However, they had no other choice, because it was kill or be killed. While they were fighting, Hyukjin stood next to Sunhwa and activated Observer's Eye. The 8th pillar was destroyed. That meant from here on out, the key item could appear. I have to find it. His party members were doing the best they could in their individual roles. Regardless of how other people saw it, the true leader was Hyukjin. And as the leader, as the person responsible for these people, he already knew exactly what he had to do. Find it. The description of Observer's Eye was, eyes that can read the flow of nature. From the locations where the ghosts appeared to the places where the wraiths first showed up, he pieced together all of the information and examined the field anew with Observer's Eye. I must find it. Sponsored content. Chapter 73. Hill of Blowing Wind. 3. The pillars of the ruined temple were a clue for the clear. The pillars could be destroyed. Every time these special pillars were destroyed, the field would change a little. Those changes weren't limited to gusts of wind or monsters being spawned. Inside the pillars, there should be 2 randomly generated clear necessary items. So how did they end up in Durangi's inventory? The cheeky squirrel was staring at me, and marks alternating over his head. You. Durangi huffed from his nose, as if to shout, state a trade condition that'll satisfy me, master. 1 fruit bundle, plus 10 minutes of belly tickling. Durangi wavered for a moment. He really liked having his belly tickled. But HMPH, that's not enough for me. I'm the one who impressed the merchant of Venice, he seemed to say with his eyes. I laid down an even better trade condition. I'll also pet your head. Durangi continued to huff, wavering on the fence. 15 minutes. In the end, Durangi opened his heart to me, apparently accepting my trade conditions. Durangi accepts the trade. You can now access his inventory. I opened Durangi's inventory. Inside were 2 items. Wind shoes 1/2. Shoes imbued with the blessing of wind. Dramatically increases one's affinity with the wind element, bestowing a synergistic effect when using wind attribute foot techniques or movement skills. However, a full pair of 2 shoes must be worn for that function to apply. Attribute: Wind. Grade: Rare. Level restriction: 25. Equip restriction: Wind attribute class. The other item was of course, Wind shoes 2/2, meaning Durangi had a full pair. He had somehow managed to snag both shoes. Just where the heck did you get these? As if he read my mind, Durangi opened his mouth wide, though it was still tiny, and showed off his front teeth. Sponsored content. Did you gnaw a hole into the pillars to get them? Durangi puffed out his chest and beat his cotton ball fist into his chest with pride. A strange set of marks appeared over his head, which I interpreted to roughly mean, I'm this awesome, see. This fellow sure was full of amusing surprises. The future has changed once again. Everywhere I went, history changed. In the past, the players here were unable to show a united front. The reason was simple, it was because this item was divided into 2 parts. 2 different players got 1 part each of this item. One was picked up by Jo Sung-hyun, and the other was picked up by some other player. As the description made clear, this item would only work if it was worn as a united pair. After many twists and turns, Sung-hyun finally managed to get both parts, but the process took quite a long time. It was a rare grade item. If I'd been one of the people to get a part of this item in the past, even I might have found it difficult to hand it over to Sung-hyun. Sung-hyun said this. In the meantime, many more players died. Things might have been different if we'd had an outstanding leader at the time, but it was still too early back then. Did that mean I was an outstanding leader, then? I'm not too sure about that. At the very least, I knew what I had to do right now. What I did now would determine the number of survivors from this field and the rewards we would reap at the end. The nameless observer continues to observe. The Lady of the Scales wonders how you will act. The Merchant of Venice is curious about the details of the exchange. The Whispering Devil would like to see a slightly more exciting scene. As always, the Guardians were watching us. They also seemed curious as to what I would do. Okay. Currently, the wind was blowing hard. I laid flat on the ground. Senya, you didn't forget your bet with me, right? I have not. After saying that, Senya's mouth moved silently. I couldn't hear what she was saying, so she was probably giving the Guardians some background info, like what kind of bet we made and how I won, which entitled me to a one-time opening of the intermediate grade item shop. Open it for me now. I will open the item shop for you. However, I can only do it one time. I know. Senya was implicitly asking me if I was really going to open the store in such an unsafe place. It would be best to make the most out of the opportunity and peruse the shop in a peaceful place. In all actuality, that was indeed the better call. However, this was no ordinary situation. The intermediate grade item shop is being opened. It has not been opened through legitimate means. As a penalty, the price of all goods within the intermediate grade item shop will be multiplied by 10. It felt like someone whacked me in the head with a hammer. Sponsored content. 10x? I expected some sort of penalty to apply, since this wasn't just jumping from the tutorial to the beginner item shop, but from the beginner to the intermediate shop. I did think there would be a side effect. But 10x? This was a total, fucking rip-off. Damn it. However, I had no other choice but to think of this as an investment for the future. Enhancement category. Item shop, intermediate grade, enhancement. Low enhancement crystal 2,000 coins 20,000 coins medium enhancement crystal 3,000 coins 30,000 coins element affinity powder 1,000 coins 10,000 coins. For a moment, I was speechless. One low enhancement crystal costs 20k. An element affinity powder costs 10k. Enhancing the wind shoes, I effortlessly snagged thanks to Durangi required 2 enhancement crystals and 1 element affinity powder. 50k coins. I hesitated for a moment. Currently, I only had 47,000 coins. If I hadn't encountered the promising thief guy, this strategy would have been far out of my reach. I had to acknowledge this as my mistake. As expected, the system wasn't as easy to navigate as I hoped. This time, I was able to scrape by thanks to fate and luck. It was merely a so-called curious coincidence. There's no guarantee that I'll continue to have this kind of luck. That meant I had to plan while thinking of the slightly worse scenarios, as well as the worst-case scenarios. My mistake turned into a learning experience. But I'm still 3,000 coins short. What method would allow me to get 3,000 K coins right now? I could call everyone and get coins from them, but that didn't seem all that easy. They were all focused on faithfully carrying out their roles. They were destroying pillars, hunting ghosts, and staying on their toes for any devil wraiths that might appear. The others didn't have any time to spare, either. I need at least 50,000 coins. Just then, my eye of perception sensed something. Reaper scans. Translator, Lay. Proofreader, Ash. Join our Discord for updates on releases. https://dsc.gg/reapercomics. The promising thief, Ji-Yu Sungmin, was enraged when he found out that all of his coins had vanished. He realized that there was a thief out there with more outstanding skills than his own. I can't go back like this. He felt too wrong to go back empty-handed. It was fine for him to steal, but getting stolen from was unforgivable. Just who the hell was it? He had no idea, but it was fine. Wanting to make up for his losses, he went up to the 12th floor. There had to be a lot of players there, after all. He was determined to undertake the slight risk and empty all their pockets. Sponsored content. But it really wasn't his day, and he suddenly ended up in a flashgate called the Hill of Blowing Wind. Fine, this is better anyway. Using the chaos to his advantage, it was a very good opportunity for him to steal coins while pretending to break pillars. Coins acquired. Plus 1,600 coins. Darn, a paltry 1,600 coins? These players were supposed to be famous and all, but they were all broke as hell. Coins acquired. Plus 900 coins. Regardless, he was raking the coins in. While the players had their full attention on raiding the gate, he worked hard to steal coins. Held coins. 19,200 coins. Sungmin got flat on the ground. As long as he did as So Yu-hyun said, there wasn't any risk of death, for the time being. A few super speedy players were also fighting those terrifying monsters called ghosts for them. All he had to do was to keep pretending he was breaking pillars while leeching coins. What if they can't buy potions because of me? Potions were crucial in raids. It was no exaggeration to call a potion a second life. Ah fuck, whatever, that's none of my concern, is it? His precious money was more important right now. Other guys hitting the bucket was actually no concern of his, was it? That was just their luck. Coins acquired. Plus 4,300 coins. That should bring his total count to 23,500 coins. Feeling proud, he went to check his coins. Held coins. 0 coin. Ji-Yu Sungmin was floored. He accidentally ended up shouting in rage. Damn it, what the fuck? That number should be 23,500, so why? How? Why was it 0? Fuming, he looked around. Using the innate ability wallet perception. One of these fuckers definitely stole his money. He would have his revenge. Or, that's what he thought, but not a single person had a lot of coins. It was like something out of the Twilight Zone. While Ji-Yu Sungmin wasn't watching, a piece of history was unfolding in one part of the field. I clicked on Durangi's status, and an explanation window popped up. Sponsored content. This is a goodwill present given to Master. Intoxicated by his own greatness, Durangi is in a very good mood. The present Durangi gave me because he was in a good mood was 23,500 coins acquired. Held coins. 71,500 coins. Even I was a little flabbergasted. I got a whopping 71,500 coins without lifting a finger. The system imposed a huge penalty on the intermediate grade item shop for opening it through less than legitimate means, but I was able to somehow jump straight over the hurdle. This genius squirrel did it again. Low enhancement crystal purchased. Minus 20,000 coins. Low enhancement crystal purchased. Minus 20,000 coins. Element affinity powder purchased. Minus 10,000 coins. My insides were twisting and churning, but this was an investment. I didn't spend a long time agonizing about it. I had to move things along quickly. Senia, starting now, I'm going to do item enhancement. Enhancement was content that Guardians liked to watch. There were definitely Guardians who went wild for this kind of stuff. The barrier of blue light has established a temporary safe zone around you. I had heard a notice from this Guardian once in the past, saying that the barrier of blue light was paying attention to me. Afterwards, I didn't get any more notices, so I forgot about them. The barrier of blue light was still watching Senia's channel, huh? In any case, I was thankful. Now, I could fully focus on the enhancement. Enhancing wind shoes. 2 enhancement crystals and 1 pouch of element affinity powder are required for the enhancement. The success rate will be determined by the player's talent and competence. Every player said that enhancement was one field where talent was king. In other things, you could somehow fudge the rates to at least average with effort, but not in enhancement. It was all down to RNG and talent, as well as money. +1 enhancement success rate. The notices continued. Wow. Chapter 74. Hill of Blowing Wind, 4. +1 enhancement success rate. There were slight differences based on player talent, but normally, the first enhancement had a success rate of around 90%. With element affinity powder mixed in, it was close to 100%. Only when a player had atrocious luck and basically zero talent was there a very tiny chance for the first enhancement to fail. +1 enhancement success rate, 120%. For a moment, I doubted my ears. 120%? 100 was already 100, so what the heck was 120? Come to think of it. In the past, the German craftsman called the master of enhancement, Lucas, once said that enhancement was not just a fight of the numbers 1 to 100. He said that there was a far higher and more beautiful world beyond that. Is this what he meant? 120%. What did that mean? Element affinity powder increases success rate by 10%. +1 enhancement success rate, 130%. The attribute of the current field has a high affinity to the object being enhanced. Field affinity increases success rate by 10%. +1 enhancement success rate, 140%. I thought that 100, 130, and 140 were all the same anyway, but it didn't seem to be the case. If that was true, there shouldn't be any reason for the system to go out of its way to state that the success rate was 140%. There had to be something different about it for sure. What could it be? The notices continued. Enhancing wind shoes. Congratulations. The enhancement was successful. Wind shoes have been enhanced to wind shoes +1. For a brief moment, I saw it. This was a blue enhancement? I mentally reeled. Ah, this is what it is. It was known that the people who were called masters in the past did enhancements using a specific method. They had distribution channels and connections all over the world and shared tips and tricks only among their exclusive ranks. Their special ability to make outstanding items was so coveted it was no exaggeration to say that they were raking in all of the world's money. The color of the item name is blue. With the enhancement, the previously white item name turned blue. Sponsored content. Above blue is purple, above purple is brown, above brown was the legendary black grade, which could only be found a few times in the entire world. It was definitely said that you need an extremely special method. I hadn't done all that much just now. I did buy the materials at a ridiculously high price because of the penalty, but that couldn't be helped. I didn't use any of those special enhancement methods that masters were said to have used, nor did I have a specific enhancement skill. But I was still able to make a blue item? What in the world? I didn't do anything all that special. Could it be that I had an incredible talent for enhancement? I was able to pull off a blue enhancement without any skills or innate abilities. It varied between items, but I think I remembered people saying that a +1 blue item was typically about the same level as a +2 white item. Let's think about it later. For now, it was more important to clear this gate and get out. Wind shoes +1. Shoes imbued with the blessing of wind dramatically increases one's affinity with the wind element, bestowing a synergistic effect when using wind attribute foot techniques or movement skills. However, a full pair of 2 shoes must be worn for that function to apply. Attribute, wind. Agility +2. Grade, rare. Level restriction, 25. Special skill, can use, imaginary running start. Equip restriction, wind attribute class. 1 enhancement, and the item gained an agility stat boost along with a special skill. Of course, its affinity to wind must have also become higher. Imaginary running start. A running start refers to the act of running a set distance in order to increase one's jumping force. The special skill imbued in the wind shoes, imaginary running start, allows the wearer to achieve the maximum jumping force without running a set distance. Synergizes extremely well with standstill. Think I get it. In order to jump high or far, you needed a running start. Obviously, you could jump further if you jumped from a run rather than a stationary position. This imaginary running start was essentially a special skill that could remove the need for such a running start. It drew out the wearer's maximum jumping force without any preparatory movements. Depending on how it's used, its value is infinite. This was clearly a stroke of luck. Incredible fortune. Just as I was thinking that, I felt one of the ghosts aiming for Jo Sung-hyun. Black spheres had already been fired. Sung-hyun can't dodge. There was no one else who would take the hit for him. Eye of perception was telling me that the only person who could act was me. Will he be okay if he gets hit by that? I wasn't sure. He might be fine, or he might not. If he was affected by the paralyzation poison, I could forcefully push him to the ground. But I decided to make a slightly more drastic investment this time. I'll take the hit for him. I made the decision in a split second. As soon as I saw the black spheres, as soon as the ghost attacked Sung-hyun, I moved. Sponsored content. Guess I should take some insurance. Yunseo, I shouted loudly. I felt her turn to look at me. That was more than enough. She was a player with enough insight to figure out my intent. She would come running over with heavenly demonic flying step. I pushed Sung-hyun. Watch out. 5 of the black spheres launched by the ghost struck my body. Goo. One of them hit my eye, another one my forehead. A third ball struck my stomach. They were all dangerous places. No matter how weak the attack, getting attacked in such vital points was bound to cause great damage. The durability of Great Orc Warrior's iron armor has sharply decreased. The durability of Great Orc Warrior's leather shoes has sharply decreased. The durability of Great Orc Warrior's leather pants has sharply decreased. Yunseo had come in a flash. Hyukjin, are you alright? Yeah, somehow. Thankfully, you're not paralyzed? Yeah. I didn't get it either. I did believe in the Great Orc Warrior set. Even if you were hit in unguarded weak points, this world's items were capable of greatly decreasing the damage taken. And if it was really dicey, the partial set effect would kick in. But who would have thought I wouldn't even be affected by the paralysis? It seemed that Lady Luck was gracing me in many ways today. If that wasn't it, then my poison resistance was higher than I thought. In the meantime, Kim Taechin destroyed the 10th pillar. There would be another gust of wind. Get down, I said. Yup. Sung-hyun also got down. While on the ground, he slowly crawled my way. Thank you. Getting thanked was fine and all, but I found it a little peculiar that Sung-hyun's eyes were slightly misted with tears. Huh? I could feel his gaze. It wasn't just a gaze of gratitude. His summary also changed a little. Summary. Young incarnation of Hammurabi who met an adult. Jo Sung-hyun always said that an adult had to act like an adult to be an adult. He seems. Even without eye of perception, I could kinda figure it out from his expression alone. Super moved right now? Sponsored content. Reaper scans. Translator, Lay. Proofreader, Ash. Join our Discord for updates on releases. https://dsc.gg/reapercomics. Jo Sung-hyun felt it. It wouldn't be good if he got hit by those balls. He knew that, but his body was unable to react. His body wasn't capable of keeping up with his thoughts yet, and he didn't have a class specialized in physical ability to begin with. Oh no. He recognized that he was in danger, but there was nothing he could do. A gruesome future started sketching itself out in his head. But then, the Hung he met earlier, the Hung who called himself Kim Hyukjin, helped him. Perhaps from his haste to jump in, he got hit by the spheres in his vital points. At that moment, Sung-hyun was moved. He never thought that someone would throw themselves into danger for his sake. After receiving Sung-hyun's thanks, Hyukjin said, "It's way better for me to get hit than you." You were a tank? Well, no, not really. Hyukjin was about to say, I'm overgeared, but he swallowed the words. Right now, Jo Sung-hyun was extremely touched. Hyukjin wasn't even a tank. He wasn't a tank, yet he still threw himself into harm's way. This person put his life on the line, thought Sung-hyun. That was a slight misunderstanding, but in any case, Sung-hyun currently believed he owed Hyukjin for saving his life and that he had met a real adult. I will repay this debt until I die. No need to die, Hyukjin said with a smile. See that central pillar over there? Yes, we have to get the offering box from there. It's a fact that every time the small pillars are destroyed, the central pillar gets lower. That was why Kim Taechin and the other players were breaking the pillars right now. However, with every pillar that is broken, the difficulty will also rise. As a result, if possible, it would be best to clear the gate now. You should see a weak current of wind in a spiral shape around the central pillar. Take a close look. Sung-hyun peered at the central pillar, heightening his mana perception as much as possible. There really is one? He didn't realize all this time, but after taking a closer look, there really was a current. Now, take this. Huh? He got an item, a rare great item. It was a precious item he'd never heard of, one that even had an agility stat boost. Why, you're giving this to me? No, I'm letting you borrow it. Once again, Sung-hyun was moved. How can he trust me? How could this Hung trust him enough to lend him an item like this? And why? Just what does he see in me? He hadn't done anything to help Hyukjin, but Hyukjin was lending him such a precious item, as if saving his life wasn't enough. Sponsored content. You don't need to be that moved. This is a place of life and death. I'm just trying to use the method that can achieve a slightly more efficient clear. Sung-hyun nodded. He was sure of it. Kim Hyukjin was a real adult. As an 18-year-old youth, his sensitivity for such things was massively heightened. What do I have to do? Like a true observer, I gave Sung-hyun the information I had obtained through observation and told the boy what he needed to do in rather concrete detail. You can do it, right? I will try. It might be dangerous. I know. You have to ride the current well. The moment you slip out of that current, you'll get swept into the gusts. It might be dangerous. No, it was definitely dangerous. But you pulled it off in the past. Even with just the base, unenhanced wind shoes, Jo Sung-hyun cleared this gate. At least half of the players died, but he cleared it all the same. He would be able to do it this time, too. I stared at the central pillar. Captured by observer's eye was a stream of wind attribute mana flowing faintly in a spiral around the central pillar. He'll ride that current up. That current would protect Sung-hyun from the strong winds blowing in this field. As long as he could ride that current without falling out, he'd be able to get all the way to the top without being influenced by the other wind. Jo Sung-hyun can do it. Sung-hyun began to run. In my eyes, the kid was indeed full of talent. He's got exactly the right route. Sung-hyun had a precise eye for the flow. He started climbing up the current, looking as if he were stepping on empty air, almost as if there were an invisible spiral staircase. He's doing great. The kid was doing much better than I expected. Was it thanks to the wind shoes enhanced into a +1 blue item? In any case, Sung-hyun was climbing up the central pillar in his own way. Alright, now. It was time for me to do what I had to do, because starting now, the situation would change yet again. I approached Yoo-hyun, taking care not to walk too fast, going at a speed that wouldn't catch the eye. Yoo-hyun, listen to me while you attack. Be discreet. While punching the 10th pillar, Yoo-hyun answered in a small voice, yes, Hyunnim. See Sung-hyun starting to go up the central pillar over there? Yoo-hyun nodded after looking from the corners of his eyes. He was a little surprised, but he didn't show it too much. There's going to be a change. It wasn't a system-induced change. Some new quest wasn't going to be issued. This was just my prediction based on the current situation. I gave him only one order. If anyone acts up, beat them up. Till they're on death's door. On death's door? Yeah, don't ask, don't argue, just smash. Sure enough, Kim Taechin suddenly shouted in rage. Hey, you son of a bitch. His gaze was pointed towards the kid climbing the central pillar. What kind of shit are you trying to pull on your own? Why are you taking action without any orders, you little shit? Having received an order from me, Yoo-hyun moved towards the man loudly displaying his courage. Chapter 75, The Offering Box. Sponsored content. What kind of shit are you trying to pull on your own? Why are you taking action without any orders, you little shit? He was being an embarrassment. That was exactly how I saw it. What Kim Taechin was doing right now wasn't leading. He was simply embarrassing himself. The situation was favorable for Taechin, so he was showing off his power by whacking the stationary pillars with his slow but destructive weapon, making large, flashy movements that looked impressive but wouldn't be at all effective in a real battle. Actually, Yoo-hyun's dealt more damage. It was just that Yoo-hyun was using his fists and had slightly more efficient and simple movements that weren't obvious to the eye. Taechin was merely a grandstander reveling in the attention right now. What kind of insight did he have to give the orders around here? Shut up, friend. Having gotten in range, Yoo-hyun swung his fists without any notice. Whoa, honestly, I was surprised. They did say there were times when Yoo-hyun was a real hard ass, but it's my first time seeing it. People said that he was normally an extremely mild-tempered and kind guy, but in certain special situations, he'd show unmatched decisiveness and swiftness of action. I guess now was one of those moments. Pow, pow, pow. Before Yoo-hyun's merciless fists, Taechin wasn't able to show a single ounce of his courage. Why you son of a bitch. Taechin swung his axe wide. Humph. His axe did have a great deal of destructive force, but it was simply too slow. What are you doing? Simply by taking one very, very casual step backwards, Yoo-hyun rendered Taechun's axe attack ineffective. I can see it again. I saw strength gathering on Yoo-hyun's heels. What I saw with observer's eye was rather different from seeing with my physical eyes. He'll definitely step in now. I could see how he would go in, how he would attack. Aiming for the abdomen. Yoo-hyun extended his right fist, exactly as I'd seen with my observer's eye. Then, he attacked the place I'd eyed, the spot right underneath the solar plexus. Afterwards, he'll immediately grab the back of the neck. I read Yoo-hyun's movements. And strike with his knee. Yoo-hyun was going to use one of his skills, beginner knee kick. I could see the flow of mana, like observer's eye was showing me how the mana moved when beginner knee kick was used. Crack. As his knee connected, the loud crack of breaking bone rang out. After taking a beginner knee kick to the jaw, Taechun blacked out on the spot. No matter how great he thought he was, the extremely spirited Kim Taechun was helpless in front of So Yoo-hyun. The players breaking the pillars halted for a moment. What's going on all of a sudden? But no one was able to stop Yoo-hyun. They simply watched the one-sided beating from afar. Why's he getting hit? Sponsored content. He's getting beaten up pretty badly. See, could it be a quest? Unless it was a quest, why would Kim Taechun get beaten so mercilessly? The guy was even knocked unconscious, as if a simple beating wasn't enough. Yoo-hyun scratched his head, returning to his usual kind, gentle herbivore look. Didn't think he'd pass out, but oh well. With a good-natured smile, Yoo-hyun returned to the pillars. Well then, let's leave that guy be and do what we have to do, fellows. Even I was a little dumbfounded. Yoo-hyun was the real, two-faced, person here, not Yunseo. The faces of the players hardened over. Not a single one of them dared to protest. From this, I learned one thing. Rational persuasion based on logic and reasoning. What would have happened if Yoo-hyun had tried to do that, instead? It would have wasted a ton of time, and someone would have definitely tried to interfere with Sung-hyun in that time. Kim Taechun's influence had been extremely strong. If he tried to pull down Sung-hyun for whatever reason, a few players would have been influenced by him. What Yoo-hyun did was very efficient. Beating first and asking later. It wasn't exactly what I had envisioned, but I found my lips quirking into a smile. Is sometimes a pretty good choice, huh? Rational persuasion was, of course, the best, but there were certainly situations where it wasn't possible. In such cases, subduing the opposition with violence and strength wasn't too bad an option. I learned something new again. In front of Yoo-hyun's overwhelming force, all the players were as meek and calm as lambs. Ji-Yoo Sungman's as busy as ever. The man was busily stealing coins. I was surprised he was still going at it in a situation like this. Well, he's just playing in his own way. Just like how combat players focused on killing monsters in combat, Ji-Yoo Sungman was also simply playing in his own way. That was how I decided to look at it. Then I need to play my way, too. Thanks to Ji-Yoo Sungman's contribution, the completion of my scenario became much more likely, since I would need a lot of coins today. I glanced at Dorongi. He didn't move. It wasn't hard for me to figure out why. Does he not have that many coins? From Dorongi's lack of enthusiasm, Ji-Yoo Sungman apparently didn't have that many coins in his inventory. The cunning squirrel was probably planning on stealing them later, once they'd been gathered into a tidy pile. Looking at Dorongi's expression, I said, "What? Is he too amateur hour for you?" Dorongi nodded. In the eyes of a theft genius, a promising thief's movements were far too pathetic. But you'll still go for me later, right? I needed coins. I would need a lot of coins in the next part. The enhancement took too many coins, but thankfully, I had Dorongi. The 11th pillar was destroyed. A powerful gust of wind rushed in again. Laying flat on the ground, I craned my head up, wondering if Sung-hyun was doing well. He is. He was moving up the weak mana current. When I focused my gaze on him, I was able to see his movements with far greater clarity. Now, right now. The timing I saw was the same as the timing Sung-hyun saw. He jumped high into the air, using the special ability of the wind shoes, imaginary running start. Down here, an incredibly strong wind was blowing, but the mana of the central pillar was protecting Sung-hyun from its influence. He was so high that clouds were obscuring him and I could no longer see his path. He'll get to the top soon. The wind abated a little. There were no victims from the 11th pillar's destruction. Everyone got flat on the ground to avoid the wind, and it looked like most of the players had gotten used to the ghosts and wraiths. The players now were a lot different from the players that first came in. Even if someone was hit by a ghost's projectile, the others would push them to the ground while someone would go out to fight the ghost. Sponsored content. Things are progressing pretty well. My initial disappointment faded a little. Time passed, and I eventually saw Sung-hyun climbing back down from high above. He had something on his back, like he was shouldering a backpack. The offering box. The crux of the clear, the end-all and be-all of the key items, the offering box, was coming down. We're now on the 12th pillar. It would soon break. This was the perfect time to clear. If we broke too many pillars, the field's difficulty would get too high, and if we broke too few, it would be too difficult to get up the central pillar. Sung Ji-yu. Yeah, what? What does your long-ranged attack look like? About 50 meters, at most? It's pretty accurate, too, but it does lack a bit of power. That was enough. There's a high chance that monsters will spawn near the central pillar. Monsters? Sung Ji-yu scowled. His expression said something like, the wraiths and ghosts are already enough to handle, but there are gonna be more? What kind of monsters? Not sure. If this is a gate artificially made for someone's amusement. There was a high chance it was. However, I didn't outright say that it was made by the Guardians. If it were me, I would throw in some flying monsters about now. Sung Gu's mouth opened in a big O. He pointed upwards. Just what are you? You're a fucking boss. There were 2 flying monsters in the sky. They had the bodies of a bird, but their faces were rather human-like. They were birds with the approximate resemblance of a human face, one that looked like it was clumsily sculpted out of mud. Inmyeonjo. Of these mythological creatures, these 2 were low-grade Inmyeonjo. The higher in rank an Inmyeonjo became, the more human-like its face became. If I had designed this gate, there's a very high chance I would have interfered with Sung-hyun. Then I just have to cover him, right? Right. Damn, your insight's hot shit, that's for sure. Standing some distance away, Yoo-hyun had also spotted the Inmyeonjo. I saw him stealing a glance at me. It seemed that he guessed something was happening from me talking to Sung Ji-yu. In very commendable fashion, he took initiative to yell, those of you who can support the player coming down over there with the offering box, cover him. However, I knew it was pointless. There wouldn't be many players who would do as Yoo-hyun said. They'll be too afraid of pulling the aggro. Inmyeonjo 29 Latvian Laches. It was absolutely not a low-level monster. The top rankers like Yoo-hyun were currently level 32. For the majority of the players here, the level of the Inmyeonjo would appear as a red. It was only natural that they would be scared. Sung Ji-yu rushed towards the central pillar. Of course, I did so as well. To prepare for any unexpected circumstances. Sponsored content. It was right for me to keep my distance as an observer as much as possible. And I did intend on doing that for the time being. But it was always possible a situation might arise where I would need to act. Sung Ji-yu used a skill. It's probably fire arrow. He didn't seem all that concerned by the possibility of drawing the monster's aggro. Sunhwa had joined us, sticking close to Sung Gu's side. She was taking action on her own, without needing me to explain the details. An arrow made of fire landed directly on the wing of one of the 2 Inmyeonjo that had appeared. Sung Ji-yu said to me, the goal isn't to kill them anyway, right? Right. The goal right now was to protect Sung-hyun, not hunt the monsters. The cool time on this skill is short, so I'll keep giving cover fire. If I pull the aggro, Sunhwa, help me out a bit. Sung Ji-yu used another fire arrow. Jo Sung-hyun continued to clamber down along the central pillar's mana, not very bothered by the Inmyeonjo that had spawned right in front of him. He'll be down S. At that moment, I saw something. Something was crawling up the pillar from the ground. A monster about 2 meters large with the shape of a lizard. Big Mouth Lizard 22 Latvian Laches. It was a lizard that could open its mouth incredibly wide. The monster was crawling rapidly up the central pillar, opening its mouth wide as if to swallow Sung-hyun alive. That thing itself won't be a problem. But if Sung-hyun were to slip out of the mana current because of it? He'd die. And I couldn't let that happen. Using the special skill Flash Step, I approached the central pillar quickly, then began to climb it. Even though I couldn't go all that high, I could certainly catch up to the lizard. I launched myself at it, tightly grasping its slender body with my legs. Then, I raised my dagger and stabbed it in the crown of its head. Using the skill Excellent Strike. Thankfully, this lizard monster's skin was extremely thin, and it wasn't a monster with very high defense. Splurt, 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 splurt. My hand went down multiple times, green blood pouring out the entire time. Seize. The acidic monster blood landed on my body, but I didn't flinch. Right now, I was wearing Great Orc Warrior armor, which was used all throughout the mid-game. While I was doing that, Sung-hyun passed me and continued down. Sung-hyun seemed to know exactly what he needed to do, too. In the end, his 2 feet touched the ground. Big Mouth Lizard has been hunted. EXP is decreased. Sponsored content. Items will not be dropped. That was fine. A reduction in EXP was an acceptable loss right now. It stung a little, but it was a loss I could swallow. But just then, I got notices. The Lady of the Scales is impressed. The Lady of the Scales gives you a sponsorship of 300 coins. The Nameless Observer continues to observe. There was even another kind of notice. The Barrier of Blue Light wants to help you. The Barrier of Blue Light states their strong will to sponsor you. What? Helping was helping, and sponsoring was sponsoring. So what was stating their strong will to sponsor all about? Were they just expressing aloud their desire to help me? The Barrier of Blue Light promises a big sponsorship. I didn't know what they would give me. For now, I decided to focus on what was more important and clear this place. So now, the offering box's influence will kick in. A notice confirmed my thoughts. The offering box, Holy Relic, is beginning to assert its influence. Sponsored content. Chapter 76. The Offering Box. 2. Sponsored content. The offering box reached the ground. The offering box, Holy Relic, is beginning to assert its influence. The offering box, Holy Relic, calms the wind blowing in the Hill of Blowing Wind. The offering box, Holy Relic, heals all who are injured. The offering box, Holy Relic, eliminates all monsters. Thanks to the offering box's effects, we were out of the woods. The wind disappeared, as did the monsters. All injuries were treated. Naturally, the unconscious Kim Tae-chan also got up. Damn it, let my guard down. He grumbled, but he didn't blatantly seek trouble with Yoo-hyun. He must have sensed that the atmosphere had changed somehow and wanted to see how the situation proceeded. Alright, then we have to move on to the next part. In order to clear this gate, we had to satisfy the offering box. Anyone could click the offering box, and anyone could read its description. Offering box of the Wind Temple. A small box for collecting offerings. Those who come to the Temple of Wind must show their sincerity to this offering box. When the offering box is full, the blessing of the Wind Temple will be granted. The same quest was given to everyone who clicked on it. Quest. Donate 100k coins. Quest reward. Hill of Blowing Wind, clear. So basically, the final quest of this place was to donate 100k coins to the offering box. No matter who made the donation, the gate would be cleared. How much someone donated would not be publicized. In the past, Jo Sung-hyun put it like this. In the end, we started putting in coins in order of time of arrival, leaving it to people's consciences. There was no way to check how much each person put in. Still, we thought it was the most reasonable method. Jo Sung-hyun did say that he had dumped all 15,000 coins he had on him at the time. That's why Sung-hyun was chosen by the offering box. He put in 15,000 coins and was chosen by the offering box. In other words, all of the other players put in less than 15,000 coins. There were probably a lot of people who pretended to donate but didn't. On the other hand, the rather naive Jo Sung-hyun invested his entire fortune. He might have done so thinking that it was something a person should do, the right thing to do so that everyone could live. If it's the same as the past, I just have to donate at least 15,000 coins. Then, I would be chosen by the offering box. The de facto leader right now, Yoo-hyun, stated his opinion. Should we go around and put in as many coins as each person can handle? Everyone shuffled awkwardly. It wasn't surprising. The clear would be achieved even if you didn't put in any coins and someone else did it instead. Naturally, what ended up happening was that people went up one by one, pretending to put in coins. I couldn't see anything with eye of perception or observer's eye. I can't see how much they put in. It was my turn. Sponsored content. I checked how many coins I had. I had 21,500 coins left after buying enhancement crystals and element affinity powder, but Durangi had earned more coins in the meantime. Held coins, 31,500. The theft genius Durangi had stolen again from the promising PG summon. It was a very good development for me. Set how many coins you will offer to the offering box. Coins. In the past, Sung-hyun was chosen by the offering box with 15,000 coins. Coins, 30,000. Offer 30,000 coins? There was a second confirmation notice, and I invested 30,000 coins just like that. After all, the coins themselves weren't important right now, so I decided to play it a little safer. I would probably be the person who donated the most coins here. A few people did yell out that they'd been robbed. Huh? My coins? My coins have disappeared. However, they quickly shut up. Making a big fuss about their coins disappearing in a situation like this was the same thing as saying, I don't have coins, so I can't pay. Even if they were frustrated, they couldn't quite say so. They could only pretend to put coins in the offering box. Sung-hyun also went up to the offering box and put in coins. Not long after that, a notice rang out. The offering box is full of offerings. The blessing of the Wind Temple will be granted to the players who have come here. The offering box was filled faster than I expected. I put in 30k, and Sung-hyun probably put in 15k. Collecting the remaining 55k didn't take as long as I thought. Once the rewards calculation of the Flashgate, Hill of Blowing Wind, has concluded, all players will automatically leave the gate. The players rejoiced. With the ghosts appearing and strong gusts killing the players, approximately 15 people died here. The victim count is far lower. In the past, at least 150 people had died. Compared to that, we experienced 1/10 of the loss. I would just have to see what kind of butterfly effects this result would have in the future. A yellow appeared over the offering box. It was apparently only visible to me. When I clicked it with my eyes, a message popped up. The offering box has chosen you. You are granted the offering box's reward. The offering box would only reward one person, the player who donated the most coins. The offering box will determine what you most need. This was the reward I'd wanted. The system would calculate what I needed, and dole out an appropriate reward. Sponsored content. The offering box responds to your need. The offering box grants you the special ability, Cognitive Dissonance. Special ability, Cognitive Dissonance. I'd never heard of it before. There was an immense number of innate abilities and special abilities in the world. Someone might have had this one before, but it wasn't one I had heard of. I checked it right away. Cognitive Dissonance. The special ability granted by the Wind Temple's offering box after determining what the player needed. Cognitive dissonance refers to the phenomenon that occurs when there are discrepancies or inconsistencies with what one believes and actually sees. This ability, which forcefully creates dissonance between what is seen and what is perceived, will be a great help when concealing the player's abilities, achievements, or crimes. The ability of this dissonance is tied to one's talent, whereby its efficacy and effect are based on the player's innate talent. Duration: 30 minutes cooldown. 12 hours. Conditions to use: the will to assist from a guardian with bulwark, hallucination, illusion, defense, fortress, mountain fortress, barrier, apparition, in their name. A body that has awakened an innate ability related to perception. It was an ability that forcefully created disparity between what one saw with their eyes and what one actually perceived. And the use and effect is determined by my talent. Since I'd never used it before, I didn't know what exactly that would look like. However, this special ability had conditions for its use. The first one settled. I recalled the notice I had heard earlier. The barrier of blue light wants to help you. The barrier of blue light states their strong will to sponsor you. A guardian with barrier in their name strongly expressed their desire to help me. So as long as the barrier of blue light didn't retract their will to assist me, I could keep using this ability. The other condition was satisfied as well. A body that has awakened an innate ability related to perception. I satisfied both of the conditions required to use the reward I got. I was happy, but the other players heard a notice that was a little baffling to them. The rewards calculation has concluded. Reaper scans. Translator, Lei. Proofreader, Ash. Join our Discord for updates on releases. https://dsc.gg/reapercomics. Sponsored content. People began to murmur. Anyone get a reward? I didn't get anything? Did anyone get something? I stayed silent. There was no reason for me to step forward. However, notices even I hadn't expected rang out. Determining the number of remaining pillars. Calculating a special additional reward. Oh, wow. The reward is increased if you leave pillars intact? In the past, all of the pillars were destroyed. But this time, we only destroyed 12 pillars. There were still 6 left. Huh? Look over there. One of the pillars glowed blue and turned to dust, disappearing. The motes of blue light looked like they would be scattered into the air, but then, they began to fly over like a cloud of fireflies. It's heading. I could tell. Towards me. This was basically screaming to the whole world, guys, I got the reward. I couldn't even refuse it. I didn't know how effective it would be. but I decided to use the ability I just got right away. Using the special ability Cognitive Dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is an ability based on the player's innate talent. The ability to perceive reality as being distorted. The way to use it came to me naturally, like a baby knowing how to breathe without being taught. Calculating the use, effect, range of cognitive dissonance in real time. I just automatically made a calculation in my head, drawing out the situation I wanted to see. Just like when I designed my future based on what I knew, I did the same now. I'll make a distortion so that people cannot perceive the sight of me getting the reward. I made it so that the players wouldn't focus on me. It was like looking at trees on the side of the road. Unless you concentrated and counted how many trees there were, you wouldn't remember it and just think, huh? How many trees were there? Or wait, were there even trees there? This is cognitive dissonance. It was a strange feeling, like I was implanting a situation in people's minds the way I wanted. Though temporary, I used this ability to create the phenomenon of cognitive dissonance. The duration of cognitive dissonance is set to 30 minutes. It was fascinating. I'm not drawing any attention. Sponsored content. It was as if people weren't able to mentally process what they were seeing with their eyes. In the end, the blue dust poured onto my head, granting the blessing of the wind temple. It was the thing that had been in the description of the offering box. When the offering box is full, the blessing of the wind temple will be granted. In the past, no one got the blessing because all of the pillars were destroyed. It was different this time. 5,000 coins acquired. Another pillar became dust and showered down on me. 5,000 coins acquired. I got 5,000 coins each from 5 pillars. This was literally, winner takes all. The other players didn't get a single scrap of rewards, but I'd already gotten 25,000 coins. The last one. If I got another 5,000 coins from the last pillar, that would make 30,000 coins total, which would mean I broke even. The 6th pillar disappeared, becoming glowing blue dust and falling down on me. 5,000 coins acquired. From this part alone, I got 30k coins. However, it didn't even end there. Granting the blessing of the wind temple. Confirming that you have 6 blessings. The hidden piece, 6 blessings has been fulfilled. 6 blessings. If at least 6 pillars were left intact, this hidden piece would be fulfilled. So there was something like this. What Sung Hyun said in the past about how it would have been perfect if only about 12 pillars were destroyed, was actually turning into reality. In any case, this was great. The more rewards there were, the better. 30 minutes left in the duration of cognitive dissonance. Dramatically increases your wind attribute affinity. In addition, I got an item. What? This could be gotten here? Venti Body Tome. It was an item, a magic tome, that was discovered less than 10 times over 10 years. It was the wind version of the Vulcan Body Tome that Choi Sung-ji currently had. There should only be about 5 wind element classes. But this tome had already shown up. The Vulcan Body Tome is already out, and there's no law that says the Venti Body Tome shouldn't come out, too, but this was an item that enormously amplified the abilities and talent of a wind element class, a special artifact that would turn an ordinary guy into a talent, and a talent into a genius. If someone who was already specialized in the wind element were to use this, someone like Jo Sung-hyun. Chapter 77. Tomb of the Wind Warrior. Sponsored content. If someone who was already specialized in the wind element were to use this, someone like Jo Sung-hyun. That effect would be indescribable, like making a genius to trump all geniuses. Just as I was thinking that, I saw something. Something was sticking out of Sung-hyun's back. What's that? When I looked closer, I realized what that was. A candle. Specifically, a blue light candle. It was called a blue light candle. Like the name suggested, the candle was burning with a blue flame. When the light is extinguished, a new field will be opened. This class of items was called random artifacts, because you never knew when or where they would appear. One kind of random artifact, candles, had 2 different types, red light candles and blue light candles. Yunseo also went up to Sung-hyun, saying, "What's with this candle-like thing on your back? It's blue." Next to her, Sunhwa also stared at the light with fascination. "Amazing. The candle is attached to your back. Do you think it would go out if I blew on it? I want to try." The way her eyes sparkled was really cute. It struck me a lot these days, but I was truly glad she became my sister. Her cuteness blessed me every day. "You can't blow it out." "Got it." Despite being at a rebellious age, she was very obedient. Turning to me, Sung-hyun asked, "Do you happen to know what this is?" Nope. I pretended to just be observing. If it's blown out too quickly, the difficulty will be too high. By the same token, if the flame went out completely because it was blown out too late, the candle would disappear. We had to blow it out before the wick completely burned up. Damn, this is one fascinating flame. I'm amazing when it comes to fire, you know. Thanks to the Vulcan body tome, Choi Sung-goo's dormant potential for the fire element was second to none. He seemed to find the candlelight very fascinating. I think something new will happen if this is blown out? He was pretty much right on the money. But I get the feeling that it shouldn't be blown out too quickly. From the way he guessed it with one glance, a genius was indeed a genius. Sung-goo's gaze turned to me. What'll we do? What'll we do? With that one question, Jo Sung-hyun became absolutely sure of something. The true leader of this group was Kim Hyukjin. He was a little confused. Honestly, he hadn't thought there would be someone who would be above the tutorial ender. He had also seen Shin Yunzio's movements earlier, and they were simply incredible. If I were to face her, he would lose, no doubt about it. She was amazing, as was Kim Sunhwa, who had a ridiculous tanking ability. And of course, there was Choi Sung-ji, whose fire magic was obviously the most outstanding out of all the magicians here. But all of them were waiting for Hyukjin's words and judgment, like it was natural. That must mean that Hyukjin Hung is just that amazing. It was so very natural, the way Sung-ji asked for Hyukjin's opinion. When he saw it, Sung-hyun felt a feeling akin to longing surge up within him. I want to learn. Sponsored content. Unbeknownst to him, his feelings and gaze had already been picked up by my eye of perception. State, slight longing, trust, faith. I had achieved my goal in coming here, acquiring Jo Sung-hyun's trust. The candle offers greater reward than risk. It was even a blue light candle. There was a high chance for a bigger reward. Also, whoever blows out the blue light candle can pick the players who will participate. It was decided, if it was low risk, high return, giving it a go was the only answer, at least in my opinion. The nameless observer is watching you. The Lady of the Scales is waiting for your choice. The courageous Lion King is impatient. The barrier of blue light regards your prudence in high esteem. The whispering devil is bored. I waited a little longer. I have to get the timing right. I had to wait for the point where the wick was almost completely burned out. 0.5 seconds could very well make a huge difference in the difficulty. It was random. Now. I blew on the blue light candle. Whoo! The moment I blew, the light went out, and a notice immediately rang out. The blue light candle has gone out. Perfect timing. The timing could not be any better. I got the feeling I heard fanfare. The perfect timing greatly decreases the difficulty. The perfect timing greatly increases the rewards. I also heard the party selection notice. Select the players who will proceed. Maximum raid participants, 6. I picked right away. Jo Sung-hyun, Choi Sung-ji, So Yoo-hyun, Kim Sunhwa, Shin Yunzio, and finally, Kim Hyukjin. Was this made for me? Or is it because my timing was so spot on? I couldn't be sure, but how was it possible that even the max party limit was perfect for us? In any case, it was a good thing. The wind, a refreshing breeze, began to blow again. Sponsored content. It blew gently in whimsical directions. At the same time, the stream of notices continued. Leaving the Flashgate, Hill of Blowing Wind, and entering the Flashgate, Tomb of the Wind Warrior. Our surroundings were quiet. A gloomy fog had settled over the dark scenery, giving off the feeling of a poorly maintained cemetery or an abandoned field. Occasionally, there was the raucous cawing of a crow. You, fuck, I'm scared. Sung-ji grabbed my right arm. Hi Hyungnim. I don't like this, said Suyin, clutching my left arm. Then, he shivered all over, squealing, ah. It's a mouse. A mouse. I hate mice. He was half clinging to me, and trust me, I was over it. If the two of you don't get off right now, I'll kill you right here and now. It might be different if it were Yunzio or Sunhwa, but what were these guys who were bigger than me doing? Well, it doesn't seem like they're actually terrified. Sung-goo's state was. State. Fascination, slight fear, bravado. And Yoo-hyun's was. State. Slightly scared, determination, a little afraid. Since fascination and determination were there, they would do just fine if we had to keep playing. Just then, I picked up something with eye of perception. On your toes, everyone. It was a blue light candle, and I extinguished it at the perfect timing. The difficulty shouldn't be terribly high, But we couldn't be careless. The ground shook. A slight distance away, a tomb began to emerge from the ground. From it, I felt something familiar. This feeling is. It felt like something I'd already experienced before. A monster that I had already fought before. Great Orc Warrior? A great Orc Warrior was getting to its feet. Next to it, other tombs were coming up as well, but they're just for show. Nothing would come out of them. The difficulty was greatly reduced. If my guess was right, it should have originally been a great Orc Warrior plus an Orc Archer and maybe 1 or 2 regular Orcs to support the Orc Archer. Weirdly enough, I just knew that. I can see it. Even without seeing it happen, I could envision what this place's difficulty should have originally been, and how it would have progressed. 2 Orc Archers, 1 regular Orc, and a great Orc Warrior. That's what we would have been up against, and if that had really happened, it might have been a little tough for us at our current level, but not impossible. If we had moved well as an organic team, that was a challenge we could have definitely managed, though it would have been quite tricky if there were 3 or 4 Orcs guarding the Orc Archers. Yuncio pulled out her sword. I get what this is about. Yuncio seemed to have sensed it, too. She knew that we had to fight the Great Orc Warrior, a monster we had fought in the past. Hyukjin, you still have one of the steel stakes we used last time, right? How admirable. She remembered the strategy. Yeah, I do. Just then, I heard a notice. The Herdsman of Las Vegas offers a new quest. The Herdsman of Las Vegas shares the details of the new quest. In accordance with the request of the Herdsman of Las Vegas, a pause takes effect. Sponsored content. The Herdsman of Las Vegas, who relish gambling, offered me a quest. A note was in my inventory. Can activate the quest, secret within the tomb of the Wind Warrior. If you accept the quest, the difficulty will be adjusted to the original difficulty of the Tomb of the Wind Warrior, and an additional 5 Orcs will be spawned. Upon quest clear, you will receive 100,000 coins. Upon quest clear, you will receive Great Orc Warrior's gloves. Upon quest clear, you will receive U-Plex Dungeon First Entry rights. Upon quest failure, all party members will die. 100,000 coins was a given, but what really caught my eye was the U-Plex Dungeon First Entry rights. It had to refer to the U-Plex next to the Hyundai department store in Sinchon, the Seoul district Sunhwa, and I went around last time. I would obtain the right to enter that dungeon even though it wasn't even formally open yet. Does that mean it'll open to us first? It was never revealed in the past how that dungeon opened up. That's somewhere I absolutely have to go. Plus, I would get Great Orc Warrior's gloves. For a wearer of the partial set like myself, it was truly a tantalizing offer. This fellow, the Herdsman of Las Vegas, didn't put up a bad offer. Yu Hyun asked, Hee-youngnim, what should we do about this? The fact that we could all talk to each other in the paused field meant that my party members also got the same proposal. It wouldn't just be an additional 2 Orcs but 5. And they wouldn't be regular Orcs, but ones that would be closely guarding the 2 Orc Archers. Clearing that difficulty the way we are right now is impossible. The one who made this proposal was none other than the Herdsman of Las Vegas. The Herdsman of Las Vegas's proposal is pretty much a gamble. It was a dangerous but simultaneously attractive gamble. The Gold Pyramid Michelle successfully won all her gambles with the Herdsman of Las Vegas and once stood at the peak of the Sovereign class players. Which meant, if I could win this Guardian's bets, that was also possible for me. But it bothers me that all party members would die if we fail the quest. This time, Yuncio spoke up. Boss, I think it would be good to accept this offer. How come? Because I think we can definitely clear it? But what in the world was her summary all about? Summary. Swordsmen putting faith in their wife. The strange summary aside, I had to make a decision as their leader. To be honest, I was thinking along the same lines as Yuncio. A slight risk for a huge reward. I'll take a closer look. Since we were in a pause anyway, I examined the field again and again with observer's eye. This was a matter where our lives were on the line. If my observations and intuition were wrong, then everyone would be in danger. If it was going to be too dangerous, staying out of it was the right thing to do. Because if we died, everything would be over. Originally, clearing would be impossible. But for some reason, there was confidence bubbling within me, confidence that we could do this. 3 minutes remaining until the pause is deactivated. I had to make a decision. Sung-hyun. Yes? This kid was the still unripe incarnation of Hammurabi. He would repay a favor with a favor twice over, and a grudge with a grudge 10 times over. That was the Typhoon's ironclad rule. I'll let you hold on to this. We couldn't accept the Herdsman of Las Vegas offer at our current level. It would be too dangerous if we did that. But if we did it with a venti body Tom Sung-hyun, it was more than doable. Not only would we be able to get out of here alive, but we would also be able to gain a hefty reward. Huh? I'm not giving it to you. I'm letting you borrow it. I handed over the venti body tome. Sponsored content. This is. Sung-hyun wouldn't realize the exact value of this item. However, he should be able to tell that it was incredibly good, and he'd realize that even more after he experienced its effects. Repay a favor with a favor. I'm giving this to you because I think this item is better suited to you than to me. So that we can survive this. I understand. Sung-hyun didn't refuse as vehemently as Sung Ji-yu. It wasn't that hard to get him to accept. Summary. Incarnation of Hammurabi resolved to repay a favor. Use it right away. It'll likely cause a big change in your body. It was the same for Sung Ji-yu. If a genius of the wind element was boosted by the venti body tome, they'd become a genius exceeding geniuses. I'm not sure this is okay. It's okay, you can just repay me back twofold. I don't understand what you see in me to be this generous. Potential? It was obvious to everyone that Sung-hyun was deeply moved. In any case, this was good. To clear this place safely, Sung-hyun's awakening was necessary. The herdsman of Las Vegas balanced the proposal with our strength. He set the difficulty so that we would barely be able to clear it, making it just hard enough that a mistake would spell our death. I was sure he set it to around that level, and it was exactly the sort of thing the expert gambler the herdsman of Las Vegas would do. But he didn't know I had the venti body tome. I hadn't publicized it. If we have Sung-hyun with the effects of the venti body tome applied, then the balance the herdsman of Las Vegas envisioned would completely fall apart. The scales of the gamble would tip our way. Thank you. I will do my best to live up to your expectations. Sung-hyun's words were full of sincerity. That's right. Repay this favor twofold, I thought with satisfaction. Because although I'm not doing this just for you or investing only in you, a favor's a favor. I will use it right now. Go ahead. Sung-hyun used the venti body tome. A strong wind enveloped Sung-hyun and whirled around with him in the center. The tempestuously raging wind was absorbed by his body. That alone changed his aura. The process took about 1 minute. We're ready. There was about 1 minute before the pause ended. The preparations were finished. So there's only one thing left to do. Senya, I said, I want to convey a proposal to the herdsmen of Las Vegas. Like they said, strike while the iron was hot. After hearing what I said, Senya, who had been streaming us in her transparent state, urgently sent me a whisper request. Player Kim Hyukjin, are you out of your mind? Don't worry, Senya, my mind is perfectly sound, and I'm confident I can create a far more favorable picture and situation. Did you forget what I said before? What are you talking about? The herdsman of Las Vegas opened the doors to this stage. That was it, he only opened the doors. From here on out, I would be the one to set the stage. Chapter 78. Tomb of the Wind Warrior, 2. Sponsored content. In the past, when the herdsman of Las Vegas proposed a gamble with me, I refused. Back then, I said this. I want to be the one who orchestrates the probability and makes a situation where I can win. Only idiots would let themselves be blinded by the tantalizing reward and bet without any information. That's why I refused. A gamble entrusted to luck alone is no different from throwing the game. That was the answer I came up with after using all of the knowledge at my disposal and thoroughly analyzing the disposition of the guardian that made the proposal. Naturally, it was well received. The herdsman of Las Vegas sent me signals that he respected my thoughts and was satisfied with them. There was also a notice like this. A great number of anonymous guardians ridicule you. Many of the same guardians were probably watching me through Senya right now. Back then, they must have ridiculed me a great deal. I want to make a counter-proposal. A kind of bet. I'd like you to convey my intent to the herdsman of Las Vegas. To that, Senya responded like this. Player Kim Hyukjin, are you out of your mind? Of course, my mind was perfectly sound. Did you forget what I said before? What are you talking about? I don't do luck-based gambles. I will orchestrate the chances and set the board. But even so, what qualifies you to make a counter-proposal to a guardian? Why not? Is there any law saying I can't? Is that forbidden in the commandments? Senya was speechless. It was natural, since there was no notion of this in Senya's mind. It was because I knew that the peak of sovereign classes, the Gold Pyramid Michelle, had made bets and counter-proposals with the herdsman of Las Vegas for many years that I could brazenly offer a counter-proposal. The herdsman of Las Vegas actually likes these kinds of counter-proposals and bets more. It was different for every guardian. You couldn't make a counter-proposal to a guardian who was arrogant and looked down on players as trash. They might label you as impudent. But not the herdsman of Las Vegas. Senia's worries were indeed unfounded. See, I said you didn't need to worry, Miss Beginner Streamer. Matching your response to the other party's disposition is playing 101. The herdsman of Las Vegas is interested in your counter-proposal. Senia's wingtips trembled. She was wearing a mask of expressionlessness, but I could see traces of shock, and she was saying something I couldn't hear. She was probably explaining something to the guardians. The herdsman of Las Vegas wants to hear the details of your counter-proposal. Sponsored content. As expected of the famous Gold Pyramid's guardian, he very generously used another pause, even though it was said to be an extremely expensive authority. The pause has been prolonged. 2 minutes have been added to the pause. With that, I had a total of 3 minutes. I got a whisper from Senia. Do not underestimate the guardians. I knew that, if he didn't like my proposal, I would be greatly penalized for the offensive crime of deceiving the herdsman of Las Vegas. I know that, too. There was no such thing as perfect. I was expanding and manipulating this board, but I couldn't control everything and have things go exactly as I wanted. I wasn't a god. But the return is far greater than the risk. This sort of thing was called an investment. When the rewards I could expect were far greater than the risks I had to undertake, it was my belief that I should boldly advance. Because I resolved myself to live differently from the past. Because I decided to be the one to make my own path. The herdsman of Las Vegas is waiting. I began to speak. According to what I have determined with my humble abilities, I believe that in this place, the tomb of the Wind Warrior, a great orc warrior, 2 orc archers, and 1 orc will appear. I didn't see it with my eyes, but my guess was likely spot on. If we accepted the secret within the tomb of the Wind Warrior, an additional 5 orcs would spawn, which would make a total of 6 regular orcs. The herdsman of Las Vegas has not concretely stated the terms of the new quest. Sometimes, there were quests like this, insidious ones where the end goal was left up to interpretation. Such quests were undesirable. Quests with concrete tasks, like, hunt the great orc warrior, or, destroy the clear crystal, were good quests. The herdsman of Las Vegas tested me with this proposal. He wanted to see if I was truly a player worth his attention. There was no doubt that he had been curious to see if I was a player he should sponsor. As such, I would like to ask that the quest terms be concretely stated, and at the same time. With this, I should have secured an easy pass for the herdsman of Las Vegas's test. Considering his disposition, this answer should score 100 points in his book. I would like to propose those concrete terms as a counter-proposal. Senia's wings continued to tremble. Her impudent player dared to make bets and counter-proposals with a guardian, so she, a powerless beginner streamer, was unsurprisingly nervous. She seemed way more nervous than me, the person involved. She really had to grow a spine. I will make an offering using proof that we have hunted the great orc warrior. Jo Sung-hyun did his best to not miss a single word Hyukjin said. He's making a deal not just on the level of intermediate administrators, but on the guardian level. It was a playing method he'd never even considered. Today, I'm really learning a lot. It felt like a new world opened up to him, like he received enlightenment. Not only that, but even his body changed. His affinity with the wind attribute dramatically increased, and he felt abundant mana, as well as the confidence to be able to achieve all things related to the wind. This is the Venti body tome. The person who gave him such an incredible item was Kim Hyukjin. Just who was this person? He became curious, and beyond that, he was awed. Sponsored content. In the end, he successfully made the deal. Sung-hyun didn't quite get it. Proof that we have hunted the great orc warrior. Just what could that be? Did something drop if you hunted a great orc warrior? Did they just have to offer that? Like how they put coins into the offering box? No idea. He didn't get it, but the quest was about to begin. Hyukjin turned to his party members. The quest is starting. They heard a notice. The quest, Secret Within the Tomb of the Wind Warrior, has been activated. Thanks to Hyukjin's efforts, they could now read the quest details. Secret Within the Tomb of the Wind Warrior. A great orc warrior has been set as the guardian monster protecting the Tomb of the Wind Warrior. In order to find out the secret within the tomb, acquire the token that proves you have hunted the great orc warrior. The paused field returned to life and began to move again. Tombs began to surge up, and the monsters began to appear. Shin Yunseo was a bundle of nerves. Just what the heck is this boss guy thinking? Rather than a regular hunt, they had to offer the proof of the hunt. If they failed, all of them would die. What are we gonna do if nothing drops? They needed a token, proving that they hunted the great orc warrior. She had no idea what that could be, but what if it didn't drop? Even if they barely managed to hunt the great orc warrior, if that didn't show up, then they would fail the quest, right? Ah, fudge. Whatever, Yunseo still trusted Hyukjin. Now wasn't the time to be quibbling over what was right or wrong. They had to join forces to clear this quest. Boss guy, should I harass the monsters while Sunhwa pulls the aggro like last time? However, Hyukjin did not respond. Boss? In the meantime, the great orc warrior emerged completely, along with the orc archers and regular orcs. The pressure they put out was incredibly intense. Sunhwa swallowed nervously as well. She had seen them before, but she still found monsters scary. They were all gross and too large. Do I just need to pull the aggro like last time? Her target would be the orc archers. She just needed to block their attacks. Sponsored content. If I hunt the regular orcs and buy time with Sung Ji-yu Mr., Sung Hyun Oppa, and Yu Hyun Mr., then Yunseo Uni and Hyukjin Oppa would be able to hunt the great orc warrior together in the meantime. Hyukjin didn't tell her what to do, but she was able to come up with a plan. But to Sunhwa, it looked a little dicey. It wouldn't be easy. She judged that hunting that many monsters with a great orc warrior of all things thrown into the mix with their current party and abilities would be very difficult. What in the world could Oppa be thinking? I waited a little longer, until the great orc warrior and the orcs fully discovered our presence and were directing hostility towards us. By now, there should be plenty of attention on us. Countless guardians had to be curious as to how we would clear this difficult quest. That was enough. Senya, here. Getting down to one knee, I held out an item to Senya with two hands. My posture was reverent, as if I were offering something. I already had proof that we hunted the great orc warrior. Great orc warrior's molar. A long molar of the great orc warrior. It is imbued with the great orc warrior's strength. If processed in a special way and ingested, you will be able to acquire a special power. Senya took the item with a sour expression. She might look expressionless to others, but I could see she was wearing a bitter expression. It was written pretty clearly over her face. What, is there any problem? Well, no. Itsked inwardly. Other people aside, Senya should already know I had acquired the great orc warrior's molar. When I got the great orc warrior's molar, the herdsman of Las Vegas wasn't watching me yet. To be more precise, it was after we killed the great orc warrior and got all the rewards that the herdsman of Las Vegas started to watch me. The timing simply aligned like that, and that was why I made a bet like this. The quest clear condition has been satisfied. A portion of the secret within the tomb of the Wind Warrior has been cleared. The approval of the herdsman of Las Vegas is necessary for the complete clear of the secret within the tomb of the Wind Warrior. Looked like that would take some time. The system has forcefully applied a pause. The monsters stopped in place. My party members stared at me in total shock. They must have been racking their brains to figure out what to do, but the quest was partially cleared out of nowhere. Sponsored content. The Whispering Devil is delighted. The Courageous Lion King is greatly disappointed. The Nameless Observer continues to observe. This time, I was the one to send Senya a whisper request. What are you doing? What do you mean? I've set the stage. I pulled a fast one on the herdsman of Las Vegas just now, and a lot of guardians must be watching. The herdsman of Las Vegas wouldn't be displeased. I was sure of it. He would definitely just think that my hand of cards was better than his. That was confirmed by the notice I heard next. The herdsman of Las Vegas is impressed by your hand. The herdsman of Las Vegas is debating whether he should acknowledge the complete clear. I know the herdsman of Las Vegas is satisfied with my clear, I thought. He acknowledged that I had a good hand. So the reason why he was debating acknowledging the complete clear was solely because of the other guardians. That was why I whispered Senya. Aren't the other guardians kicking up a fuss, saying this isn't a proper clear? Guardians like the Courageous Lion King would be particularly outraged. Even I had to admit that my play just now was a little sneaky. This kind of playing was polarizing. Guardians with dispositions like the herdsman of Las Vegas would definitely be okay with it, but there were bound to be quite a lot of guardians who wouldn't like it. That's why you need to step up and take an active role. You're an intermediate administrator. Obeying the rules of the system, while saving the herdsman of Las Vegas's face and simultaneously pushing for content that would satisfy the guardians. Wasn't that what an intermediate administrator, a streamer, should do? They were producers of content that could satisfy a great number of guardians. You should either give me a new quest, or round up the suckers. In other words, what Senia needed to do right now was guide the situation so that another guardian would issue a new quest in a way that didn't violate the rules of the system, thus satisfying the countless guardians who wanted to see us hunt that horde of orcs. One of these amusement-addicted guardians will issue a quest for us to hunt those orcs. Definitely. But they couldn't just issue it outright. I had already satisfied the clear condition. As far as the system was concerned, the quest could be cleared with one word from the herdsman of Las Vegas. So if the guardians wanted to dismiss that clear and make us clear it again, they would need to offer something more. An extra reward should be attached. In cases like this, where the quest had to be cleared a second time, it was typical to offer a bigger reward. Of course, the player would be able to choose whether they accept it or not. We will hunt the orcs. That was my plan from the beginning. I was just trying to maximize the rewards right now, but I always intended on taking on the original gamble. For a moment, Senia was speechless, perhaps out of shock. I grinned. Do you really intend on hunting them? That horde of orcs? Her wings quivered. I told you, didn't I? I will set the stage. Chapter 79. Tomb of the Wind Warrior, 3. Sponsored content. Senia herself admitted that she didn't have much of a gift of gab. She had little confidence when it came to expressing herself with words, and consequently, she tended not to say much when streaming players. Among the guardians, as well as the other intermediate administrators, she was starting to be called the Intermediate Administrator of Silence. I am well aware that it isn't really a good moniker. Intermediate Administrator of Silence sounded good enough, but frankly put, it was streamer who can't talk. In any case, Senia knew that very well, so she chose the strategy of simply being tight-lipped. She could afford to do so because she had such good quality content, Kim Hyukjin. But this time, she could not be taciturn. She heard Hyukjin's words. I told you, didn't I? I will set the stage. He was a player far weaker than herself. But despite that, he was forging ahead with such a play. Player Kim Hyukjin, you are right. From his actions, his confidence, and his words, she realized something. She herself grasped what she had to do right now, and how she should do it. And so, she opened her mouth. The clear condition has been satisfied. However, I believe this may not be a very gratifying clear for many of you. That is also the reason why the herdsman of Las Vegas is debating whether he should acknowledge the clear. Even as she spoke, Senia surprised herself. It felt like the longest string of words she spoke in her entire streaming career. And she had the feeling that she could actually speak quite well. It was just that she hadn't practiced it much. So if there is anyone who would bestow a new quest given within the prescribed rules, I would be grateful for your participation. The quest was already cleared. To coerce another clear, a force of equal value would be necessary. In other words, a reward. A little time passed. Hyukjin and his party members heard new notices. The Courageous Lion King and Whispering Devil make a proposal to the players. Hunt all the orc species monsters. The players can refuse the Guardian's proposal. Senia's wings trembled. It felt like she realized something huge today. Ah. So this was how you were supposed to do it. You could get coins like this, too. This was precisely that sponsorship inducement she'd heard all about. The Courageous Lion King and Whispering Devil have donated 50,000 coins each. Sponsored content. They didn't donate those coins to the players. They donated them to her, the intermediate administrator, so she could issue a new quest. She, too, would need a small reward for acting as the intermediary. She got a whopping 50k from each of the suckers, as Kim Hyukjin put it. A total of 100k coins. With this, she could afford to feed and support her young siblings, who only had her to rely on after their parents passed away. With this, she could give her siblings good clothes and good food. This is how you do it. Goosebumps rose along her arms. She had the feeling that Hyukjin taught her something big today. Her reaction was not visible to the eye. Thank you for the sponsorships. Player Kim Hyukjin's party will soon proceed with the Tomb of the Wind Warrior raid. And then, her gaze moved to Hyukjin. The pause would end soon, and the orcs would appear. The cards are stacked against them. He gave something to Jo Sung-hyun, and after receiving it, there was certainly a change in the young wind magician. However, the difficulty was too high for that to make a difference. It wasn't just 3 or 4 orcs, but a staggering 6. Orc archers, regular orcs, and a great orc warrior. It won't be easy. But Hyukjin looked confident. Because she was talking to the Guardians, she wasn't able to fully relay what Hyukjin and the other players were saying. To be more precise, she intentionally didn't stream it. This, too, was a type of directing technique. If it's player Kim Hyukjin, he will have come up with some kind of method. It was a lie to say this wouldn't be dangerous. It definitely was, but even so, Hyukjin pushed ahead, which meant he had some kind of trick up his sleeve. He must have shared that plan with the other players. I didn't share the method with the Guardians. By this point, Senya was curious, too. Just how would Kim Hyukjin hunt that big horde of orcs? How will you do this? Yoo-hyun understood exactly what he had to do. Got it, Hyungnim. I'll move exactly like you instructed. Yoo-hyun and Sung Ji-yu fist bumped. Ah, you muscle man. Why's your fist so hard? Hoo. You're just weak, Sung Ji-yu. You weakling. Ha, you watch your back, I swear. And watch out for fire. Seriously, if it weren't for Hyukjin, I wouldn't bother playing with you. Despite the barbed words, the two of them often met up to go to cafes and had run several raids together. They were just loosening their nerves and working up their fighting spirit with a very short conversation. Yunseo went up to Sung Ji-yu, saying, "Why are you guys quarreling when you can't even fight?" Yunseo, Sung Ji-yu, and Yoo-hyun made one team. Sunhwa walked in front of Sung-hyun, almost like she was protecting him. You're with me, right, Oppa? Sponsored content. Yeah, let's do our best. You're supposed to be the core of this battle, Oppa. Sunhwa flashed him a smile. She was standing in front of Sung-hyun with her tiny body. I'll protect you no problem, so please do your best with what my Oppa asked you to do. The nuance behind my Oppa and Oppa felt very different when she said them. Of course, my Oppa referred to me, and just Oppa was Sung-hyun. From the nuance to her attitude, her treatment of the two was very different. Alright. Sunhwa and Sung-hyun made another team. I grinned. They've taken up good positions. We didn't have much time. I knew that Senya deliberately didn't stream them while they were preparing, and other streamers weren't contracted with me. It's just a guess, but I bet our words were turned into static. It was probably something like that. Senya, I'll raise your value. I heard a notice. The nameless observer continues to observe. With this, I was sure of it. The nameless observer didn't actively encourage me to stand on the front lines, but they also didn't dislike me going forward and leading. They simply maintained the position of a neutral observer. Like their name suggested, they were truly just observing. The nameless observer was a fairly magnanimous guardian who didn't forcefully push observation as the playing method. I suddenly realized something. I was given onlooker at first, right? Observer felt more active than onlooker. If I can upgrade the class through the second advancement. If the next class followed the same trend, there was a high chance I might get a class that would encourage slightly more active play. A class more active than observer. I had an idea of what that would look like. It would be a class that obtained information through observation and then used that information and knowledge to garner the greatest profit possible. It might end up feeling similar to a sovereign class. It's not set in stone yet. I decided to focus on the battle for now. I could feel the great orc warrior's intense energy. It's okay. I wasn't worried. I had faced him once before. That fear of the unknown one felt when facing a completely new opponent had disappeared long ago. Sponsored content. All of the monsters finished appearing. The great orc warrior is starting to roar. At the same time, the morale of the orcs increases. The orcs are becoming violent. The orcs spotted us, marks appearing over their heads. Your opponent is here, you pieces of scum. Yoo-hyun smashed the ground with a thud, giving off the energy of a massive bull. Yunseo flew past him, using the movement skill Heavenly Demonic Flying Step. It was so she could get between the orcs and disrupt their movements. Trusting them, Choi Sung Ji-yu began to chant an incantation. Speller Cartina Noi Army. A hard-to-understand special magic incantation flowed from his lips. There were a whopping 6 regular orcs. Yunseo was messing up their advance and movements while Yoo-hyun was aggroing them. However, it was impossible for him to pull all of the violent orcs. Hyukjin moved to the orcs with a speed that was neither fast nor slow and used a skill. Using the special skill Metal. Metal. Sponsored content. Metal is the aura of a ruler in the higher form of pressure. It induces instinctive fear and awe in those who are of a lower level than the user. Hyukjin's level was 30, and the orcs was around level 27. Using the special skill Metal. Using the special skill Metal. Yoo-hyun and Yunseo also used Metal at the same time. They had gained the ability with Hyukjin, and their combined Metal squashed the orcs. A smile floated to Yunseo's lips. The orcs' movements definitely dulled, and their reaction speed was also greatly slowed. Metal had the ability to overwhelm multiple lower-level creatures. With this, we should be able to hunt them. She wasn't the Shin Yunseo of the past. Yu Hyun and Sung Ji Yu were the same. They had been able to hunt orcs even when their levels were low, but now, they were 5 levels higher than the orcs. There might be a lot of orcs, but they were up against 3 players. Yu Hyun yelled, "Orya," as he punched. Squeal! He struck one of the orcs right in the solar plexus. It's just as Hyungnam said. The orc archers didn't have a chance to look their way. They were perfectly aggroed by Sunhwa. FWIP. 2 arrows were fired in succession. One aimed for Sunhwa's forehead, and the other her heart. Staring directly at the arrows, Sunhwa said, "Oppa," and used a skill at the same time. Using the skill Platinum Shield. To that, the prepared Sung Hyun added his magic. Wendy's Napara. Wind began to blow. Earlier, Hyukjin had instructed him to recall the wind that blew in the Hill of Blowing Wind. He cast his spell while imagining those gusts. Visualize those gusts in your own way and recreate them. They don't have to be strong. They just need to slightly change the trajectory of the arrows so that Sunhwa can avoid a direct hit. When he was listening, he wasn't sure he could do it. But he'd grasped it right away when he tried. After using the Venti Body Tome, he could visualize the wind. Sponsored content. I can do this. He became sure he could do it. It's like Hyukjin Hung said. Hyukjin's suggestion was spot on. 2 small arrows appeared. He produced a wind so feeble it was hardly fair to compare it to the gusts from the Hill of Blowing Wind. Wind that can change the trajectory. He only needed to give them a slight nudge. He also wasn't casting an AoE spell to cover the entire field, just the 2 arrows. He focused. Boosted by the Venti Body Tome, his body had become incredibly sensitive to wind. Clank! As the metallic sound rang out, Sunhwa smiled brightly. There wasn't much impact. Oppa, I think you did it. They brushed off 2 arrows with ease. At that moment, Sung Hyun felt a pounding that could not be put into words. It wasn't something he felt from Sunhwa, but a pounding that came from deep within. What is this feeling? It felt like he had stepped foot on a completely new world. My heart is pounding. He simply listened and acted according to Hyukjin's words. Both Sunhwa and him, as well as the other players, simply carried out their individual roles in their individual positions. But the picture that had been so hazy earlier was becoming so concrete that it was nearly a reality. Is this the power of a real leader? A shiver went down his spine. The mere presence of an outstanding leader was enough to make him feel like each party member could give 120%. There was no doubt, Sung Hyun inferred Hyukjin's ability in class. Sovereign class. Not just a regular sovereign type class, but an excellent one supported by outstanding talent and sense. But would everything truly happen like Hyukjin said? Would everything continue to go well? It was nearly impossible to hunt the great orc warrior with a head-on attack, and Hyukjin himself had said that. Still, they had made it this far. Sung Hyun could only trust and move on. I will do what I need to do. And so, the quest created by the joint bets of the herdsmen of Las Vegas, the Whispering Devil, and even the courageous Lion King began in earnest, right on Hyukjin's palm. Chapter 80. Tomb of the Wind Warrior, 4. Sponsored content. I stared at the faraway, great orc warrior, as it tilted its head back in a roar that loudly proclaimed its position as a predator. Its level appeared as to me. It's around level 40. Although I couldn't confirm my guess with my physical eyes, I had a very useful skill called Eye of Perception. Monster. Name, Great Orc Warrior. Level, 41. Race, Orc. Level 41. The one that showed up this time wielded an enormous axe. That's good. It was like Kim Taechin, a monster that smashed its enemies with sheer power and possessed a powerful punch. The others are doing well. All that was left was for me to do my part. Now wasn't the time for me to linger in the back as an observer. I had to move as actively as possible and kill the monster. I focused my mind. The opponent was level 41. I was level 30. Actually, it was nearly impossible to solo a monster without a special strategy if you were around 10 levels under it. That was what was widely accepted. The Great Orc Warrior wasn't even a monster that had a fatal weakness like the lycanthrope. Last time, we got help from paralyzation poison. We had embedded dozens of mutant wolf fangs into the orc's body, slowing it down so we could hunt it. However, we didn't have that this time, which meant I had to go toe-to-toe with the monster on even footing. If I mess up and get hit, I could even die. If I got unlucky, that was possible, but the situation was different from before. Back then, I didn't have the Great Orc Warrior set. It was different now. I had the partial set. Partial set effect. Defends against a physical attack the wearer cannot handle, limited to once per day. However, the wearer's level must not exceed level 30. If their level exceeds 30, a damage reduction effect will be triggered depending on the attack's power. It didn't offer perfect defense, but there was definitely a damage reduction effect. After all, they're items used throughout the mid-game as well. I was wearing a whopping 3 pieces of that set. I should be able to take at least 3 hits. I never thought that I would be able to kill this behemoth without a scratch. My strategy was to sacrifice the flesh to preserve the bone. As long as my vital points aren't hit, I won't die in one hit. I continued to approach the great orc warrior. The others had fully pulled the aggro of the other orc, allowing me to draw closer while focusing solely on the great orc warrior. Sponsored content. But somehow, my movements felt strangely light. It was hard to describe, but I wasn't just imagining it. I could feel the great orc warrior getting closer and closer. It stared at me, seemingly recognizing me as prey. This time, I'll go for as straight a battle as possible. Many guardians were focusing on this battle. I intentionally chose a frontal battle. Our average levels were in the early 30s at best. I've shown a lot of tricks so far. An orthodox hunt of the great orc warrior was sure to kick the guardians into a frenzy. It might result in me getting hurt a little, but I felt that it was more than doable. Here I go. Squeal. Uttering a roar that was more like a scream, the great orc warrior hooked its axe on its shoulder and began to run towards me. It was almost like a massive bison was charging my way. Thud, 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 thud. Even as it thudded towards me, I was still reading its movements with Observer's Eye. Observer's Eye is observing the target. An image was drawn out in vivid detail in my head. This situation was similar to when I was attacked by the magic troll in the tutorial field and overcame the death sentence of Sixth Sense. The feeling from that time. At that time, Sixth Sense visualized everything I couldn't see with my eyes in my head. If things had gone as Sixth Sense showed me, I would have been struck by the magic trolls club and sent flying, my head crushed. Just like that time, the situation was automatically drawn out in my head. I can see it. I could see how this level 40 monster would move. I need to rush in on the left side here. I saw the path. Like Hyukjin planned, he quickly moved to the left. He instinctively calculated the distance and speed at which the great orc warrior was running and lured the beast into swinging its axe towards him. Whumph. The axe split the air. For the slightest moment, the great orc warrior staggered. It had swung the axe so forcefully that it lost its balance for a moment. Taking advantage of that, Hyukjin swung his sword. He had chosen a frontal fight, so some groundwork was necessary. For now, I should provoke its temper a bit. Wham! It sounded like he was striking leather with a blunt weapon. Hyukjin's sword was unable to penetrate the great orc warrior's side, but he hadn't intended on doing so from the start. His goal was to agitate it. Squeal! It only partially worked. An insignificant fly that was merely prey, merely food flitting around, could not irritate it too much. It roared. Queek, I will, eat, I will, eat. Sponsored content. While fighting the orcs, Yunseo looked at how Hyukjin was doing. She could afford to look because fighting the metal-affected orcs wasn't all that hard. She had full confidence in Hyukjin, but her slight worry was unrelated to that. Huh? However, she saw something a little odd. Those movements just now. Hyukjin's movements felt very familiar to her. Heavenly demonic flying step? The way he was moving bore a resemblance to her movement skill, heavenly demonic flying step. It wasn't 100% the same, but similar enough that she had to wonder if Hyukjin was perhaps learning heavenly demonic flying step as well. No, it's not heavenly demonic flying step. It was strangely different from her skill, almost like he was using a version of the skill with more muscle strength and power. Heavenly demonic flying step was fundamentally called a movement skill. It was different from a foot technique. The way Yunseo understood movement skills was that they were abilities that allowed one to move quickly or move in places that only allowed very difficult footing. Yunseo thrust her sword. Ha! She pierced the orc precisely in the back of its neck. As she did so, she could feel it. I feel like that's how it would look if you took heavenly demonic flying step and turned it into a foot technique. It occurred to her that if you took heavenly demonic flying step, a movement skill that focused primarily on movement, and used it like a foot technique that had a focus on combat, you would get something like that. Yunseo's interpretation was close to the truth. Hyukjin didn't realize it himself, but he was instinctively replicating the movements he saw from Yunseo through Observer's Eye. No one taught him, and he didn't even do it intentionally. His body simply moved like that automatically. The great orc warrior screamed. Squeaal. It tried to somehow remove the steel spike lodged in its mouth, but was unable to do so. The piece of steel was completely buried in the roof of its mouth and jaw. The weakness of the great orc warrior, the mouth, was open. The enraged great orc warrior used its innate ability. The great orc warrior's innate ability, Orc Fear, has been triggered. The Orc Fear crashed down on Hyukjin. Metal resists the Orc Fear. He couldn't completely shake off the fear's influence. He could feel his movements being duller than before. My shoulder's gonna get smashed here. As Hyukjin rushed in, the great orc warrior powerfully swung its axe from top to bottom. Hyukjin clenched his teeth. He had overdone it a little to put the steel spike into the great orc warrior's mouth, predicting that he would take a hit as a result. I just need to avoid getting hit in the vital spots. By moving forward, he avoided the axe's blade, allowing the axe's hilt to strike his shoulder instead of the blade. It was like taking a blow from a club. Bam! A loud impact rang out. Sponsored content. The Great Orc Warrior's partial set effect is activating. Reducing damage. He was wearing the Great Orc Warrior items and neutralized a lot of the damage with the partial set effect, but the impact was still massive. Ah! A pained groan spilled from Hyukjin's mouth. Thanks to the Great Orc Warrior's partial set effect, his shoulder barely escaped being destroyed. The attack won't end with this. Right now, he was close enough that the monster's fists could reach him. It would instinctively throw a fist at Hyukjin. Observer's eye drew out the situation. The fist would come for his temple. I can't dodge. This was all an investment he made to be able to insert the steel spike. After taking this, I'll take one more. He wasn't in the position to use flash step, nor did he have the time. Like an MMA fighter raising their guard, he brought up his arms to protect his temples, clenching his teeth and preparing for impact. Wait. He thought that defense was his only avenue, but he glimpsed another way. In that fleeting moment, a brief moment that flashed past, he made a decision. Its belly. Hyukjin kicked the Great Orc Warrior's belly. It wasn't in order to do damage to the Great Orc Warrior, but to push himself away. Whumph. The Great Orc Warrior's fist whooshed through the air. I dodged it. He felt the fist graze past him, like a massive boulder flew past his nose. If that had hit me. Even with his guard up, that fist would have dealt quite a lot of damage. Hyukjin flipped into a backwards roll, hitting the ground. Rolling on the ground looked less than graceful, but it was much better than getting hit by the Great Orc Warrior's fist. Hyukjin picked up a very strange feeling. This feeling, what is it? Up until the last moment, there was definitely no path. The only choice was to block. But then, a path naturally opened up, like his instincts reacted as soon as the moment was upon him. However, he wasn't able to focus on that sensation for long. I can see it again. In its excitement, the orc swung wide and hadn't yet found its balance. The orc's mouth. It was wide open. Right now. Could he use flash step? If he wasn't able to deal a fatal blow, he would suffer a counterattack right after. But there wasn't time to ponder. The opening in the Great Orc Warrior's defense wouldn't last long. He didn't miss this brief moment or the tiny opening it afforded. There was no such thing as a perfectly safe attack, especially when the opponent was stronger than him. When fighting a strong opponent, a little gambling was necessary. Sponsored content. Using the special skill flash step. He moved along a straight line that represented the shortest distance between one point to the next, instantly closing the gap. He saw the Great Orc Warrior's red, gaping mouth like he was looking at it through a telescope. Using the extra speed from flash step. As one might expect, if this speed could be harnessed, it would lend incredible destructive force. If he could strike the orc's weak point with this speed plus his own weight and strength, he would be able to deal a great deal of damage. He saw the orc's mouth as a point. Pierce that point. Hyukjin wasn't conscious of the fact that he was physically embodying the single-hit finisher he saw from Yunseo before. The observer, class Kim Hyukjin reproduced the skill used by the swordsman, class Yunseo. Even though their classes were different, his body was showing a new stage. Shweeing. With the whistle of steel. Splurt. Hyukjin's sword penetrated the Great Orc Warrior's mouth, sticking out the back of the orc's neck. Squeaal. The Great Orc Warrior ululated a strangled cry, windmilling its arms at random from the unbearable pain. Bam! Hyukjin was struck by one of its flailing fists. Pain assaulted his wrist. He didn't get hit at a vital spot, and it wasn't a strike with real force behind it. It was literally just a graze, but he still took a lot of damage. I think my wrist is fractured. Like before, he kicked off the great orc warrior to widen the distance, then looked briefly around. Everyone is finished. Everyone completed their individual roles in their individual positions. They were indeed the heroes of the future. If just one person was missing, this raid would have been nearly impossible. Between choppy, labored breaths, Hyukjin said, "My last order. Remember it?" As soon as they heard his words, the waiting Sung Hyun and Sung Ji-yu moved. As Hyukjin recovered his breathing, he looked toward Senya, who was as expressionless as ever. "I said I would set this stage, Senya." They weren't empty words. It wasn't possible to sway the Guardians with the likes of lies or deception. If you said you would show them, you had to show them. Since I told them I would show them a straight fight, I need to do that. What he had already shown them was certainly a more than decent spectacle, considering a level 30 player had the clear edge over a great orc warrior a good 10 levels higher. However, Hyukjin wasn't satisfied with that. This is the climax. The quest bet on by the herdsman of Las Vegas, the courageous Lion King, and the whispering devil hurtled on to its climax, towards the climax Hyukjin directed. Sponsored content.